This is episode 266 of the Real Me In, a movie podcast. On this week's episode, Chase and Joel will take a look at the Lego Movie 2, the second part, and Alita Battle Angel. What will we think of both movies? It's going to be quite a ride. All that and more on today's Real Me In. What is going on, everybody, and welcome to episode 266 of this amazing movie podcast show that you guys always like listening to. I am Chase Lee, one of your co-hosts here, one of your cohorts on this journey, this cinema journey that we will take you on. If you are new to the show, welcome. What we typically do is we'll go over some trailers, then some movie news, and we'll review movies that come out on said weekend, and then wrap it up, and then we'll come at you guys next weekend. But if you're a returning listener, welcome back. As stated in the intro, what we will be doing on this show is, of course, go all over 2 weeks worth of goodies in terms of trailers and news, and then we will have our reviews of the Lego Movie 2, the second part, and Alita Battle Angel. Quite interesting discussions that I'm assuming that will be had. Because I feel like I saw Alita like 4 months ago. It's been a while. But yes, that is the topic of discussion for today. Before we begin, and I introduce the co-host over there, if you guys could, like this podcast, share it around, and let people know this is your favorite movie podcast to listen to while you're going to work, coming from work, you're working out, whatever. We always appreciate you guys listening. And speaking of the co-host over there, he is ready. He's primed up, ready to go. It's been a couple weeks, Joel. How's it going? You know, it's been a while since we've heard each other's sultry voices to one another. And so, what's been going on in Joel's world?
I've been weeping, missing it.
Right. Yeah, me too.
It's been going pretty well. And you said like what people are doing while they're listening to us. Hey guys, if you're pooping, it's okay. That's okay.
It's okay. We still love you. I what do you think I do while I'm going? I blaze through my Twitter feed. So every time when I reply to Mark, he should just know that I'm in like the most uncomfortable of situations, and it's just going to be really awkward for him. So I just want to let Mark know that. Hi, Mark.
Okay. But yeah, it's been going pretty well. Just another couple of weeks, busy times at work. Sale weekend started today, so have that to look forward to. Those are always fun. And saw a bunch of movies, of course, because that's what I do. I am watching a bunch of Law and Order SVU episodes recently because it's weirdly addictive, slightly disturbing. Other than that, I'm trying to think. I revisited Hancock recently. Did I mention that already? I might have. But anyway.
You have. And so I think it's really funny because once you said it, I was like, this is deja vu. Like, I swear, like, he talked about this 2 weeks ago.
I think I talked about this. I did. I will say that the anniversary of Philip Seymour Hoffman's passing was within the time that we last talked. And I caught up with one of his smaller movies, a movie that kind of went under the radar, or really went under the radar. In fact, I don't even know if most people will have heard of it, but it's called Owning Mahoney. Came out back in 2003, I think. Yeah, 2003. Made Roger Ebert's top 10 of that year. I think it was his number 6 or 7. Really good movie, and he's fantastic in it. It's about, he plays this guy who's a gambling addict, and he's in deep with some sharks, and decides to start kind of embellishing and embezzling money from his company in order to pay that off, and eventually he just becomes more and more addicted to gambling and doesn't consider that cost. And it's based on a real thing that happened in the 80s. It was one of the biggest and most successful bits of bank fraud ever committed. Really interesting movie. The DVD was out of print for a long time, really unfindable. I think it kind of recently came back into print, if you will, just because of his death probably in the last couple of years. It seems to be easier to find than it was for a long time. But I happened to nab it when its price point dropped at work exponentially. by some degree, and I'm happy that I did. It's a really interesting character study. It's not specifically a suspense piece, but it's fantastic. It also stars John Hurt, so a couple of people who are no longer with us, unfortunately. But yeah, it's a terrific piece of work. So if you can find it somewhere, guys, definitely go see that movie or go watch that movie because it's good stuff. Good stuff. Have you ever heard of that one, Chase?
I don't think so. That's it's like you said, it's one of his smaller ones. So yeah, that's probably why because I've never heard of it.
Yeah, yeah. He had like a run of a bunch of movies at the same around the same time from 2002 to 2005 or something. And so some of his were, some of them were more, I guess, more popular. I don't know if that's the right word, but in more common kind of play than that one was. Stuff like 25th Hour and Punch Drunk Love, and believe it or not, something like Along Came Polly even was a lot more famous than this one was. But it was right in the middle of that sweet spot where he was doing a bunch of work and it was all really solid. And yeah, it's definitely one of the better performances I've seen from him, and that's saying a lot. So anyway, that was a significant first watch for me. I really liked that. So
yeah, I love Philip Seymour Hoffman. He went away from us way too soon. I mean, when you want to talk about the amazing thread of movies that he had just recently before his death with like The Master and like Ides of March, Moneyball, and even with something as The Hunger Games, it's like the guy's committed, and to give a shining light on a couple of ones that you guys may not know about. They're actually two of my favorites. If you guys are ever curious about Philip Seymour Hoffman and want to expand your knowledge of his filmography, Schenectady, New York, I believe is that how you pronounce it, Joel?
Schenectady, but you're
Schenectady. You know what I'm talking about. And then Before the Devil Knows You're Dead is a really great one too. Man. So yeah, I love both of those. And 2007 was a great year. That's when Before the Devil Knows You're Dead was released, and it was Sidney Lumet's last film. Right. The director of stuff like 12 Angry Men, The Verdict, great filmmaker. And guys, 2007, unreal year. And I think that there are probably 6 masterpieces, movies that I would be pretty confident calling masterpieces. And Before the Devil Knows You're Dead is one of them. That might be Hoffman's best performance. It's a devastating movie, total downer, constant in that regard, but it is just fabulous filmmaking. So yeah, for sure. I was able to catch up with that one toward the end of last year for the first time. And anyway, really, really good movie. All right. Well, in any case, we have trailers and a bunch of them to talk about. So start out with those. Well, Joel, my past 2 weeks have been good, I guess.
Sorry.
Oh, man. It's almost like Joel just doesn't even care. He just blazes through, and he's just like, listen, I don't care what you've been up to.
Who are you again?
Yeah, who was you? No, to be quite frank with you guys, I was out of town last weekend, didn't really catch up on any movies. I was telling Joel before we recorded, I watched everything until the last 20 minutes of The House with the Clock in its Wall, so that was fun, I guess. And that's about it. Haven't really watched anything new. I have kept my word, and I reviewed every single movie and threw the extra ones on the podcast feed. I want to let you. I'm curious. Like, have you guys been enjoying that? Because like I threw 5 of them on there. To Dust, Happy Death Day to You, The Prodigy. Just extra stuff that I do have access to over here. That it's not a part of the main show. I'll do this for you guys. And I'm just wondering if you guys are liking that. If it's annoying. If it's annoying, I apologize. I'm still going to do it, but I'm hoping you guys are enjoying the plethora of podcast feedage, coming at you because I like giving you guys the full gamut of what Joel and I review throughout the year. So hopefully you guys are enjoying that. So Joel is correct. There's been a bunch of trailers that have dropped these past 2 weeks, and what I'm going to do because Joel does his thing on how he structures the trailers. I'm basically just going to go from whatever just released today and then travel backwards, which means, yes, I will end on Aladdin. So, a lot of fun to be had on that one. So, if we're going to start out from the one that just dropped today, it's actually from Lionsgate, and this one's called Long Shot, and this one stars Charlize Theron, and Seth Rogen, Alexander Skarsgård, Andy Serkis, and this one kind of tells the story of Seth Rogen's character and Charlize Theron's character. They were friends in high school, I believe, if I remember correctly, and she, in this world, she's making a run for the presidency, so they get together, and he kind of helps her out. So it's almost like her campaign manager a little bit, but it's mainly about their friendship and just kind of the journey that they go on. It looks fine. You guys know me. I'm a fan of my Rogan. That is what I will call him, my Rogan. The trailer kind of plays out like it's going to be like this kind of Seth Rogen off the cuff improv comedy, which Charlize is really good at too. If you watch her in anything, in interviews or anything that's not really in movie related, she's a really funny person. So this is actually a nice pairing, and it's something that you don't really expect. But the trailer kind of plays out into like this kind of comedic adventure between them, like this road trip buddy type of movie. But it also tries to throw out some kind of dramatic elements in there too. So more of a dramedy. I just kind of wish they would play up a little bit more of the drama aspect of the dramedy, because right now it just seems like a straight comedy. And when they had like the little peppering of the dramatic scenes, it just didn't really flow that well because it wasn't really well balanced. So that would be my only criticism of it. Other than that, it looks fine. It doesn't look like anything atrocious or anything, but I think it's an interesting pairing to see Rogen and Theron in a movie together, because they, even Lionsgate said that in their teaser trailer that they dropped the day before. They're just like, Rogen, Theron, who would have expected, or something like that. So I'm like, yeah, so a nice little pairing, and it re-teams Seth Rogen with his 50-50 director, Jonathan Levine. So it could have that element where, 50-50. If you watch that trailer, it kind of plays out the same way, where they lean heavily into the comedy, but then you are so pleasantly surprised by the actual product when you see it in the movie. You're like, okay, so the trailer didn't really matter that much because it was, using the comedy to kind of reel people into the movie theater, and then once they watch it, they're pleasantly surprised. So I'm hoping this is the same way, so that would be amazing, because 50-50 is definitely one of the best films of 2011. So next trailer is actually one that caught me off guard. I can't believe this is even a thing, but the theory, I actually like the theory around why Disney dropped this. That Aladdin was so widely spread and panned that Disney was like, all right, let's release the Frozen 2 teaser trailer to get people to start talking about that. And you know what? It worked, because I don't remember anything from Aladdin now. This is all about Frozen 2, because I know Joel has said it a million times. He likes Frozen, and I know I joke about it a lot, but I like Frozen as well. It's not my favorite of the kind of like modern Disney Renaissance. That would be Wreck-It Ralph, the first one. That's my favorite one. Then it would probably go Tangled, then Frozen, then Wreck-It Ralph 2. I'm one of those weird people that like Tangled over Frozen, but I still appreciate Frozen for what it was. I know they had that annoying short in front of Coco, and I know Let It Go was played to death, but I can't sit here and tell you that it was bad just because of those two things. They might have oversaturated in some areas of the movie, but it's still a good movie. Okay, the teaser trailer. Who said in the boardroom meeting that was just like, hey, you know what, for the sequel, we're going to make it more mature. We're going to make it a tad darker, kind of atmospheric, a little bit. Like, we're just going to completely do away with what the first one did. because the first one had those elements with, Hans and a couple of the thematic stuff, but overall it was still very, kind of a happy-ish movie. This looks like, people are going to be dying left and right. People are just going to be like falling on icicles and just bleeding out. And you're like, Disney, what is happening? Because the trailer starts out with Elsa trying to run across the ocean, and she makes all these kind of like ice ramps to do that. And then it cuts to a couple of beautiful shots with Anna and some random person, and then they have one shot of Olaf, but luckily this whole trailer has no dialogue, so it's all visual, and it's all music driven, and I loved it. It's the type of tone that struck me in a way to where I was like, you know what, I think they're going to go in a different direction with this, and I'm totally down for it. So no dialogue. It's all powered through editing and music, and just really gets you in the feels. And you're like, wow, this is a mature version, or more mature version than the first one. I'm digging it. And I would not be surprised if Disney was in panic mode and released this after Aladdin, because this totally took my mind off of it. So, hey, listen, for a teaser, giving us a bit of the tone and the atmosphere, not really much of the story or what anyone sounds like, but it's more of just like atmospheric. I'm all down for it. So yeah, Frozen 2, I actually want to see it now. It was one of those things to where I think it was so overdone with, Let It Go, and then that stupid short in front of Coco just made me angry. But with this, it gets me back on board. So you know what, Disney, congratulations. I do not remember Aladdin. The only time I'm going to remember is when I have to talk about it in about 10 minutes. All right, so the next one is The Hustle, and this one is a remake of Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. And this one stars Anne Hathaway and Rebel Wilson. And if you guys don't know what Dirty Rotten Scoundrels is, it's Joel, I just blanked. Who are the two leads again?
Michael Caine. I haven't seen it, so hold on.
Oh, Steve Martin. Steve Martin.
Yeah, Steve Martin and Michael Caine.
Right. So in the original Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, they are two con men that go up to rich women and they try to swindle them out of their money. This one is a gender flip, and we have Rebel Wilson, who teams up with Anne Hathaway, and they kind of, hustle men, and hence the name The Hustle. To be honest with you, I wasn't feeling it. I don't know. It just seemed kind of lazy to me. In terms of the way it was just presented, it didn't really look like it had any actual care to the original. I remember seeing the original a long time on television. I remember liking it enough, but I didn't really think that, I needed a remake of this movie. So if you're a fan of that movie, and you have always wanted a remake, then this might be for you. This one just didn't really strike a chord with me. It could play well, because Anne Hathaway was in a heist movie with Ocean's 8, and so maybe people like her in those type of movies. I have no clue. I didn't see the movie. So The Hustle comes out in May, I believe, and that's what the movie's about. And it just kind of looked like a bland, boring comedy. And I feel really bad for Rebel Wilson, because she was a really, really funny bit role in Bridesmaids, and so someone took that idea of her comedy, and like she's been in all these movies, and she's basically the dumbed down version of Melissa McCarthy, because Melissa McCarthy used to do like the whole like I'm gonna fall and break stuff, and have pies thrown in my face, and you're like, cool, what is this, like 1920? And so you have Rebel Wilson over here doing the same thing, except none of her movies really get any traction. Now, that could all change when Joel and I look at the box office numbers on Sunday, because she's got her movie, Isn't It a Romantic, out right now. But before that movie, she's been kind of hit and miss. And I just, even with the pairing of Anne Hathaway, I don't really see it really putting her in a good limelight. And I don't know where her career's headed, but it's not really working with movies like this. Okay. The next one is based on the author of Lord of the Rings, and this one stars Nicholas Hoult as J.R.R. Tolkien, and there you go. It's his biography, and this one kind of focuses on his kind of younger self and really kind of getting into the groove of being a novelist, and of course writing the famous book that we all know and love. It's a really short trailer, but I'm not gonna lie, I really liked it quite a bit. I think in that small window of opportunity that you have to present your movie to the public that have probably never even heard of J.R.R. Tolkien. I know it's weird, but there are probably some people that have never heard of him. Presenting this person in this light and this type of trailer, it has like this really sweeping, epic feel to it, but also a really kind of internal film as well, and all the stuff that J.R.R. is going to have to fight through and really kind of pour his heart and soul into this book. And I don't know, it kind of it hit me in a way where I was like, you know what? I was always interested in a Tolkien movie, but I think with this trailer, I'm even more interested now. So yeah, sign me up. This is a really nice trailer for this type of movie, and it's Fox Searchlight, and I wouldn't be surprised if they try to push Holt for a Best Actor nom towards the end of the year. Let me see when it comes out, because I believe it's still in post-production. It doesn't really have like a set date. It says it's coming to theaters May 10th, which is weird because it's the same day as The Hustle. God bless it. Yeah, hopefully if it's good enough that his performance will kind of last all the way till Oscar season. I thought the same way with Toni Collette with Hereditary coming out in June, but F me, right? All right, so the next one is a remake of a film that I've actually never seen before. Not a remake, but a continuation, but I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of go back to the original and just kind of do a light remake, but also continuation. Whatever the case, it's Shaft. This is, yes, a continuation of the 2000 film Shaft, where in this one we get to see Shaft's son and then Shaft's dad. So it's just this trio of Shafts just walking down the road in their long leather coats. So yeah, I don't really care much about this franchise to even remember the plot. So I'm just going to read it to you verbatim what IMDb says. John Shaft Jr., a cybersecurity expert with a degree from MIT, enlists his family's help to uncover the truth behind his best friend's untimely death. Ooh, sounds really cool. It has like that pulpy type of black exploitation feel to it. Set in 2019, so it is very odd to see that type of movie set in this time period because, we don't see many movies like this. But, I mean, it looks like it's fun enough. Some of the lines made me kind of smirk a little bit. Wasn't really like, ha, 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 laughter, laughter, laughter. But, I got a grin out of Samuel L. Jackson and the prospect of him saying mother effer probably 1,000 times. Yeah, it just looks like a fun little throwaway movie that I'm hoping it's a lot better than Sam Jackson's last R-rated kind of action comedy effort, which was Hitman's Bodyguard. Did not care for that one at all. There were moments of, kind of greatness, but it just overall it kind of fell flat for me. So I'm hoping this kind of like gets him back into that groove again, because as much as I like seeing him as, Nick Fury and all these like PG-13 like family friendly versions of himself, I always love it when Sam Jackson just pops on screen, just pops that MFer bomb, and you feel warm inside. You just feel like you've accomplished a lot in life knowing that you have seen Sam Jackson do what he does best. So Shaft coming out June 14th, could be a fun little summer flick. So yeah, definitely not the worst trailer. Okay, so the next one, I can't believe they're going down this route, but, it is what it is. Comes out June 21st, and that would be Child's Play, the remake of the 1988 film, which I adore dearly. So, because Joel doesn't give a crap about this, so I'm going to go ahead and speak to you as a fan of this franchise. and give you guys the truth of what I thought about the remake. So this one stars Aubrey Plaza, and Brian Tyree Henry. They're the two big names in this film. Cannot believe both of them are in the same movie. That's kind of incredible. And then a young gentleman named Gabriel Bateman. He actually plays Andy Barclay. And if you guys have ever seen the original Child's Play, Andy Barclay has his mom, and his mom is wanting to get a gift for him for was it his birthday or Christmas? His birthday, and she finds a good guy doll, and it's this kind of play doll thing that looks like a construction worker. He's got his red flowing hair. You guys know all the iconic look of Chucky, right? And so just give you guys a brief little history. The first two Child's Play movies, because I'm a fan of all 8 of them, by the way. The first 2 are strictly horror. 3 kind of dives into that horror comedy a little bit. And then 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 are straight up ridiculous horror comedy. So they found their footing, and they realized that Chucky is this one-liner, perverse type of character. It's going to be super violent and super outrageous. They found their footing, and it worked. And so, going more back to their horror roots now, I actually like the trailer. I am a little curious how they're going to pull off the artificial intelligence angle, because in the original film, which was made in the late 80s, the good guy doll kind of just looks like a normal plaything that comes to life. And you're probably wondering, because I realize I missed that step, how does he come to life? So there is this serial killer on the loose. Oh man, what's his name? Charles Lee Ray. That's what it is. His name is Charles Lee Ray. He's running from the cops, and then he gets stuck in a toy store because he's trying to hide from the cops. So he knows possession methods, and so he summons the power to possess his soul into, or transfer his soul, into the Chucky doll, or the good guy doll. And so, the police shoot him, and so his spirit lives on through this doll, and that's the doll that Andy's mom gets. He gets up and convinces Andy to kill his mom. It's creepy stuff when you think about it. But in this one, there's because we don't actually get to see his face, by the way. So I have no idea what he really looks like.
Probably like Brad Dourif.
Probably,
That's what I'm guessing.
by the way, I have I've always appreciated horror icons like Freddy, Jason, or Michael, but Brad Dourif is the most perfect casting for this character. He has so much fun in the role, and he still continues to do it to this day. So collecting that paycheck, I don't blame him. So I have not seen what the new one looks like, but Joel is right. He probably looks like Brad Dourif. But there is one shot from the back of the box, and it's doing this facial scan on Andy. And so I'm like, oh, okay, so they're kind of updating it to the modern times. It's going to be more artificial intelligence-y, like a smart play doll, playhouse doll or whatever. And so I found that to be an interesting angle, but I think for an overall look of the trailer, I'm digging it. The last shot of Aubrey Plaza, bound and tied up, like there's something like coming behind her, and she looks like just petrified. Gave me chills. I was like, oh man, she's really giving this role 100%. And besides maybe some horror comedies that she did with Life After Beth and like a couple others she's dabbled in, she's really never done straight up horror before. So I'm actually really curious to see how she does. And of course, Brian Tyree Henry is a chameleon. He could be in anything, and I will watch it. He was in Hotel Artemis, which I didn't really care for overall, but I liked his part in the movie, and he was barely even in it. So that just shows you how great of an actor he is. And so, I think overall it's got me interested. I can't wait. I can't believe that they're going to release this in the mid summer, in late June. Like, they're going to compete with I know it's not coming out around the same time, but like It Chapter 2, because it is going to come out in September, and that the first one was just it just gangbusters at the box office. So that's what they're kind of banking on. An R-rated slasher film. Chucky, he's a notable IP. So this makes total sense to release in the summer, and I just like everything that they're doing so far. I am a little curious about the AI thing, like facial scanning and stuff. Don't really know how that's going to play, but for right now, I'm digging what I see. All right, the next one is from producer James Wan, and this is the next film in the Conjuring universe. No, it is not Annabelle 3, which I can't really make that joke anymore because I didn't mind Annabelle creation. Side note. All right, so this next one is The Curse of La Llorona, and before Joel stopped watching trailers, he actually watched the first trailer with me. And, of course, that was more atmospheric, what are the scares going to be like type of trailer, because it really just basically showed one scene, which was the car scene.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, right. And so this trailer is a little bit more of the story. And first of all, because the first one didn't really reveal who was in it, Linda Cardellini is in this. And like, she's front and center in trailer 2, and I'm like, what the? I didn't even realize she was even in this. So, so this is the second trailer. Tells a little bit more of the story. She's trying to hide her children from this La Llorona because the myth is that this demon specifically kidnaps kids. That's kind of the whole thing about it. I like it. It's the same kind of reaction to the first trailer where it's like, James Wan knows how to do these horror films, and he knows how to do them well. I like most of them, so if he can just continue to do it this way, I am totally on board. Insidious, Conjuring, the second Annabelle. The Nun was probably the most garbage one I've seen so far, because no, I did not see the first Annabelle. But everything else I've loved, and I think tackling this specific myth is interesting, because I don't really read up on myths that much, and so this one kind of piques my interest, and in the trailer they kind of perceive it as like one of the more dastardly demons that they have in this universe, and even more so than the Nun, because they even claimed in the Nun's promotional marketing that the Nun is the scariest and most terrifying thing in this universe. I actually think this creature is. And so, I like the trailer quite a bit. Once again, tells a little bit of the story and sets itself up for a couple of long scene scares, like the car scene. At the end of this trailer, there was a bathtub scene with one of the kids, and it's just, oh, God. It just makes you, like, just shiver, knowing, like, what the entity was doing. It's just, whoo. Okay, so
it better be good, because the director is Michael Chavez, who is directing The Conjuring 3.
Right. So this is almost like an audition movie for us as the audience, going, okay, how is this guy going to handle The Conjuring after James Wan?
Yeah, and I'm sure that it was a contractual thing. Sometimes they do that where, because this is his first feature-length movie. So what I'm thinking is, they were shopping around for directors. They kind of found this guy and also had an idea to set a movie around this creature. And we're like, okay, well, if you can kind of prove your mettle to us and direct this other thing. And obviously,
since James Wan is a producer on all these films, like, he seems like the type of producer that, because there's two different types. There's hands-on and there's ones that go to set like every 2 months. I feel like James Wan is one of those actor producers, and he probably saw something on set that he really liked, or like what you said, the director like maybe was talking with James and was kind of playing around with ideas, and he's just like, wow, I'm actually going to recommend you for the Conjuring 3 job. So that could have been it too. But we'll definitely have to see, because you're right. If this movie is good, like really good, and it's one of the best in this universe, then people are going to be hyped out of their minds for The Conjuring 3. So, I mean, I'm already hyped out of my mind, even if this movie's terrible, but this will definitely help it. So, I see this as a win-win, because they'll probably make a lot of money anyway. So even if it's bad, it's still going to make a lot. So either way, I think this movie's looking pretty good. Okay. So, Joel and I were gone last weekend, and I was with my girlfriend and my parents and my brother and his fiance, and we're having a lovely night. And, I'm just sitting there and just sipping on my beer or whatever I was drinking. We're playing like card games. I forgot what we were doing. And I popped on my Twitter feed. I just wanted to see what was going on. The Grammys were on that night, and so I know my girlfriend's really into music. So she was asking like who was winning and stuff, and so I looked through a brief list on IMDb or wherever it was at, and so people started talking. Joel, and I was like, well, what are they talking about? Like, was one of the winners at the Grammys like that controversial? Like, what's going on? So I go on Twitter, and I was greeted with one of the most frightening things I've seen in quite some time. Now, as you guys know, that like I'm into horror films. I've seen dismemberments. I've seen like gory stuff. I have seen it all, folks. I sat through the new Evil Dead, and I was unfazed. This put me into a deep depression. I almost thought of like quitting social media. It was that bad. So what was everyone talking about? This Aladdin TV spot. Now, up until this point, I haven't really cared for the first teaser trailer. Didn't really show us much and did not care for the CGI. So they released a TV spot during the Grammys, and they show a little bit of Jafar, which I think looks kind of lame. And then, Joel, there was something. How do I put it? There was something at the end of the trailer that sparked a little controversy. And so, when I was watching the trailer,
can I guess what it was?
Was it
It was the next great horror movie villain.
Right. Yeah. So, like, because as the trailer was playing, I was like, oh wow, is this it chapter 2? And so, when it got to the end reveal, and we saw what the genie looked like, I nearly shat my pants. So I just want to know. I have a question for the Disney CEO Bob Iger, because he obviously signed off on this and thought this was okay to release to the public. Hey Bob Iger, I have a question for you. If your CGI is 66% done, why would you release it to the public? This looks awful. Okay, and this trailer just reaffirms to me that I don't even want to see this movie. The first trailer was underwhelming. Didn't really give me anything. I realize that a teaser trailer can do that, but still. This is an abomination. And the one thing that came to my mind on how Will Smith looks, I want you to imagine, because this is the only joke I had prepared for this. I want you to imagine we're watching The Smurfs 3. And so, we go back into the Smurf village. And, of course, Smurfette is the only female Smurf. So I'm sure a bunch of, like, Smurf dudes and their Smurf genitalia are just all trying to get in there, right? What he looks like is if a Smurf from that village took steroids and kept taking them for, like, 5 years straight and then just became this, like, big gelatinous blob and just floated on air. That's what he looks like. And on top of all that, his face isn't even composited right on this weird CGI mess. So it looks like it's Will Smith's face on this blue splotch on the screen just floating at you. What is so appealing about that? Who looked at this trailer and said, oh, well, this looks good. We got to release it at the Grammys. No, you should be fired. And so I listen, this thing, Disney is going to have another memorial bomb failure because it comes out around that time. Alice in Wonderland 2 did not do well. Pirates of the Caribbean 5 did not do well. Do you really think that your curse is going to be...
didn't do well.
Yeah, exactly. Do you really think your curse is going to be lifted from this Aladdin movie where Will Smith looks like a roided out blue Shrek. There's no way. There's no way that this movie is not going to fail. So he looks awful. I cannot believe that they sunk this much money into this movie and released that trailer and said it was okay. Oh, it hurts my head. Now, if you want to talk realistically, I subscribe to the Entertainment Weekly magazine. Some of these shots, when they're outside the cave and they're in the city and whatnot, those shots look fine. I have no issues with those. But it seems like every time when they're in a cave in this movie, it looks like trash. So the first trailer revealed Aladdin in front of this weird, like, treasure green screen, and that looked atrocious. Now we have Will Smith and his face floating on this splotch, like in a cave. So it sounds like you should do no more cave scenes. Okay, just keep it all in the city, and maybe we can work from there. It's just not working for me, Joel. Not working for me.
That was the most entertaining takedown of something that you've given in a while. So I applaud. I applaud.
When your genie just looks it like Joel, like he looks like one of those gym bros that you see at the gym painted blue. So if you have Tobias or Paul Giamatti from Big Fat Liar, and then you mix it with a roided dude with Will Smith's face on it, that's what we're getting. Like, why? Why is that the design? Listen, Joel, like, we grew up during the animated one, and it was wonderful because it was animated, and Robin Williams was able to, like, be in a voice booth and, like, just go crazy, do whatever he wanted because his energy would match the animation from the movie. I never, ever thought that we needed a live-action remake of this film, and now I'm even more so convinced that we don't need one. It is terrifying. So keep it animated. Just stop this nonsense. And, I have all the hope in the world for Lion King, but good Lord, if this is the downhill slope of these remakes, this is going to do it. So, Joel, take it away, sir.
Okay, so I happened to actually see this trailer on mute.
Because you had to see what the hubbub was about?
Well, no, it was just because it automatically played on Facebook, and I was drawn in. I was like, okay, I might as well. So I haven't heard any of the dialogue. I saw Jafar. I haven't heard his voice. I've heard that he sounds whiny. But anyway, and so I was like, you know what? I might as well just watch this on mute because I don't care. And guys, it pretty much reaffirmed for me that in terms of this year's Disney-led live-action remakes of their own properties, in terms of like from the most excited I am to the least excited I am, it goes from Dumbo, because I think that one has potential based on the trailers I've seen, or that I saw before my break, and then Lion King, and then a big flaming pile of crap, and then Aladdin. That's pretty much where it goes for me, because based on just the visual look is ugly to me. And somebody basically to give my thoughts about what Will Smith looks as Genie, at least on mute. I haven't heard his voice or anything. There were a few images that were obviously posted by Disney alongside this trailer, and one of them is the jolly picture of the Genie pointing at his biggest form at Aladdin and smiling, and somebody juxtaposed that with an image of the Pennywise from It when he's the big thing coming out of the projector, and that's pretty much perfect. That pretty much explains it to me. He looks like, honestly, and I was joking, but I also wasn't. He looks like a terrifying thing. It's beyond unreasonably terrifying, and I don't understand it. We just got news, and I decided not to cover it because it's annoying. And it's also something of an oxymoron. But we're apparently going to be getting a live action, so to speak, remake of The Nightmare Before Christmas. I decided not to include that in this week's notes because, guys, guess what? Stop motion animation is live action. It's on an actual set being manipulated by people. It's kind of an animation because you personally are animating the objects, but it is a live action film. So we already have a live action Nightmare Before Christmas, and so we don't need a human actor version of that.
Hold on. Is Disney paying for the therapy for all those kids when they make it? Like, there's no way that
Yeah.
no one's going to not be scarred from that.
What, right. And also, there's a simplicity about the original movie, which is only like 80 minutes. I don't think people realize that, remember that. It's like 78 minutes long. There's simplicity that they won't be able to capture in human actor form. I'm just going to call it that instead of live action because, again, it is already live action. But here, with Aladdin, ever since I heard that Will Smith was going to be the genie, I was hesitant, and it doesn't have anything to do with the fact that I don't like Will Smith. It also has nothing to do with the fact that the other thing. I'm not racist. I was hesitant because I was like, so how are they gonna make him all big and blue without it looking horrifying? Because the whole thing about the genie is that he's big and theatrical, and you have to have some level of cartoonishness in your execution of that character, and a degree of kind of ad-libbiness because a lot of Robin Williams' dialogue or his riffs were ad-libbed, and so you're going to have an actor with a completely different comic kind of tone coming in because let's face it, just in terms of their comic approach to acting, Robin Williams and Will Smith are not the same. That's why they were never in a movie together. Like it's why you would never find them in a movie together. That's actually something like I for a long time would have been interested in seeing Robin Williams and Jim Carrey in a movie together. I think that would have been too much star power, probably too much for the budget, for anybody to really believably do that. But I would have been interested in that because there's a similarity going on with Williams and Carrey. There's divergences as well, but I think that Williams was a little bit more ad lib joke in his joke style, and Jim Carrey's a physical performer, but not Robin Williams and Will Smith. And so you have these two completely different comic actors taking this role on, and it's weird. I would have much rather have seen Jim Carrey take on the role. That would have been interesting, I think. But yeah, I really don't understand it. And seeing it in action in this little 5 seconds that he appears in the trailer, at least on mute. Again, I haven't heard his voice or anything like that. I'm sure that he just sounds like Will Smith. But yeah, seeing him in action, not so much. And the whole production.
Yeah, the only way that you could have gotten around this is if the genie didn't have his face and it was animated into another face and just have his voice. That would have been the only way to salvage this.
Yeah. Make him just this big, visual effects creation rather than a motion capture one. Because clearly that's what they've done. I suspect that there's a level of motion capture here to some degree. I'm sure that he was not anywhere around the main actor playing Aladdin. I'm sure that he was interacting with something else in like a studio somewhere or a studio room or whatever whatever those are called that I can't remember right now. It looks totally fake. And again, I just the visual look of this movie is weirdly ugly, and I don't know. At least to me, it doesn't feel like sand-swept deserts. It feels like it was created in a computer to me. And that's the key word. It feels like it. Sometimes you have those situations and they don't. And anyway, somebody on Twitter said, this is kind of what we get for having watched Beauty and the Beast and not Pete's Dragon, because Pete's Dragon was a lot more mature, was much less of a shot-for-shot remake. For one thing, it wasn't a musical, and and it was mature. It was ballsy in terms of what it was trying to show kids. And here, you just have carbon copies going on. It's not thoughtful at all. And yeah, I just that's why I think Dumbo seems to have enough of the embellishments of the storyline that Burton seems to be going in his own direction with it, and that's why I'm way more excited. But
and also,
something like
Dumbo
the Lion
doesn't
King,
look like a flying nightmare.
right? Yeah, no, he looks impressive. That's the thing that I'm so surprised about, considering everything else that we've seen from like this and to a lesser degree, but still a significant one, the Lion King, is that those movies look like complete carbon copies. And then Dumbo looks like it's turning away, and also it looks a lot more visually impressive than the other two to me, and so that's why I'm most excited for Dumbo. Unfortunately, we get that one first, so my excitement for Disney's live action remakes pretty much dies by the end of March. But yeah, I mean, I'm gonna have to start hearing reviews of this movie before I ever get even remotely excited, and maybe it's good, of course, but that's always a possibility. Any movie can be good, but it's not looking good. So yeah, that's primarily why me and Chase are not excited. And anyway, so Chase, clearly that was your favorite trailer of the week, or is that your last one? I don't even know if it's your last one.
I think Chlamydia might be my favorite of the week. Oh, you said Aladdin? Oh, and yeah, that's definitely not.
All right. Well, is that the last trailer?
That is definitely the last trailer. So sorry for the long-winded response, but Disney, you kind of goofed. You done goofed.
Yeah. It's
That's why I love that theory that someone was floating around that said that they released the Frozen 2 teaser to get the heat off of them. I was like, hey, it worked.
Yeah, I mean, I don't follow any sort of trailer tracking anymore. I don't know if there's any credence to that. I don't know if they had plans to maybe release it a little bit closer to How to Train Your Dragon, because clearly that's what it's going to play in front of now. That, and then probably Captain Marvel and Dumbo, and then every movie after that point. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, it certainly is believable considering the response that it got. I mean, all of those, it pretty much took over the airwaves that Sunday night when it dropped.
Yeah, because they were
like everybody
who?
was everybody was like posting pictures and comparing him to other blue things. It was really funny.
The Tobias one from Arrested Development was the best.
Yeah, I like the one with Pennywise, and I also like the there was one where somebody captioned him saying, "Where is the Soul Stone, Aladdin?" which was pretty funny. And then you had a bunch, like a picture of him with like Dr. Manhattan and Beast and stuff, and then below it was "I'm Blue Dabba Dee," which is pretty awesome. So somebody found a way to reference the song, and there was a bunch of characters. It wasn't just those three. It was Dr. Manhattan. There was like Yondu was in the photo, and and there was also
someone like literally all they did was just put Shrek 5 underneath the picture, and they said, "Man, this sequel looks bizarre."
Well, somebody also photoshopped like features of Shrek onto it, and then colored it green, and had him with the like he actually points at Donkey in one of the Shrek movies. So I think they just took that and put Donkey like facing him. It was pretty funny, and it was just in that, within that frame of the happy, gleeful picture where he's I guess about to murder Aladdin or something. Yeah, it's pretty. It's pretty crazy. It's really, really funny. And anyway, and then there was another thing where that meme where it's like it's like the girl you like, and then her dad and her ex and her boyfriend.
Yeah, that one was hilarious.
Yeah, where
because the boyfriend, the girl you like, the boyfriend picture was Jake from Avatar.
Yeah. Yes. The girl you like was Neytiri from Avatar, and then you had her father was the genie, and then the you version was Paul Giamatti from Big Fat Liar, which in his silly face. Anyway, it's hilarious. All the stuff that's come out of that is pretty funny. So, all right, folks, let's move on from disaster trailers to the news of the week to a disaster Oscars. Now, I am fully aware to those who are listening that this has changed, and in fact, it changed within a couple of hours of us recording. So, while I created the notes this morning, or last night, I should say, and this hadn't happened, now it has, which makes this a really, really weird story with a happy ending. So, all right. Within the last couple of weeks, stuff around the Academy Awards presentation this year changed dramatically because we had heard for a couple of months that they were not going to be airing all of the categories on air, and this was a trying to make the show 3 hours exactly. Basically, they were determined to do that because they had this weird misunderstanding of ratings that caused them to think that they needed to do this. Of course, that's stupid because guess what? Even if the show's really long, the ratings aren't affected by length because the longest show of all time, I think, was a 4-hour, 23-minute telecast in 2002, the year that it kind of made history, actually, because it was, I think, one of the only times, or maybe the only time, that actors of color won in the lead acting categories, and those were Denzel Washington for Training Day and Halle Berry for Monsters Ball. And that was a 4-hour, 23-minute telecast, believe it or not. I remember watching it. I don't know if Chase remembers watching it, but I remember watching it. It was a long time that I was sitting there. Great time. Really good show, actually. That was one of my favorites I've ever watched. And it was that long. And the ratings were in the 40 million number. So clearly the length had nothing to do with it in terms of the ratings. People didn't mind it. So clearly, historically, people don't mind the length. Now, the show has become political. We live in political times. I feel like that's probably part of it. So maybe what ABC needs to do is just get over that. I know that, for a television, for a TV company, it's all about, or whatever, it's all about kind of, for a TV channel, there we go. That's the word I was looking for. It's all about ratings and how to fix them if they're off, and that's fine. But this is a one-off show. It happens once per year. There's a bunch of lead up to it. Show it how it is, and yeah. So anyway, so we'd had this rumor. It was troubling that they were not going to show all of the categories, and then about a week ago, we got word of what the categories are that they were going to leave out, and those were cinematography, film editing, makeup and hairstyling, and live action short. So here's where the uproar happened. It was kind of twofold. On the one hand, people were saying, well, cinematography and film editing are literally the reasons an audience likes a movie. They are the things that that people interact with when they watch a movie. They watch the movie, that's the cinematography, and then they encounter the pacing and they yeah, so that's pretty much the reason. Now, makeup and hairstyling, of course, is one of the categories in which women usually flourish in the industry, and so leaving that out is bad optics. And then you had live action short film, which was already under fire for one of its nominees being a movie that was about the James Bulger murder, and Bulger's mother was not told about the movie's making, and all of that happened. So perhaps this was an attempt to kind of paper that over. You can all look into that some other time. It's very complicated and sad. But so maybe they were thinking, we could paper over that. But then, and so in the wake of this, you had a bunch of former winners and people involved in the industry kind of in an uproar, and understandably because, just last year, Roger Deakins won the cinematography award for the first time. We wouldn't have been able to see that happen. And it's obviously a place of inspiration for people up and coming, whether they're wanting to become a cinematographer or a film editor, or just, or makeup artist, hairstyling, technician, all of that. Or if they just want to be a feature filmmaker, you know, and that's what the live action short film thing is for. It's inspiration, direct inspiration for aspiring filmmakers. So clearly, huge uproar happened, and a lot of people signed an open letter to the Academy, including folks like Roger Deakins, Quentin Tarantino, Martin Scorsese, Alfonso Cuarón, I think. And I know there were some people just active on Twitter. I don't know if all of them signed it, but Guillermo del Toro was concerned. He seemed to be more calm about it than other people, but he was definitely concerned. So a lot of these, industry people were very concerned about this. And so the other thing was that somebody was sharp enough to notice that all 4 of the to be omitted categories had no movies from Disney. And of course, Disney's very strong in terms of the nominees this year. A lot of stuff that they've had nominated, and none of their affiliates or anything had nominees in these 4 categories. So people are like, oh, okay, well, they're just they're going to do this, but they're also not going to hurt themselves because, of course, Disney owns ABC, and so that was the other thing, and that was very troubling. But I can be happy to report that within the last 24 hours, within the last few hours, they have reversed all of that. They're going to show everything that they were originally going to. I think that the 3 performances that were not going to happen are still not going to happen. I don't think that they reversed that because I'm pretty sure there's a deadline for all of those, and also the host to be added on. There's still no host. Those have all passed, so I feel like those things can't change. But this disastrous decision to have everybody just kind of deal with the fact that they weren't going to show these 4 categories has been reversed. So that's good news. Now, on more personal podcast related, in terms of this podcast. Now, this is unfortunate. All right. In the midst of everything that was going on, and also because of a scheduling kind of occurrence at work, a lot of complicated stuff there, we had decided a few days ago, Chase and I, that we were not going to do a live telecast podcast of the Oscars. And the reason is mostly because of the fact that I wasn't going to be able to because I had to work that night. But unfortunately, that decision remains even after everything has gone over smoothly. So we are still not going to do a live broadcast. So yeah, it's just because of all the mess, and now it's really running up close to the show. So I just kind of wanted to be the first to tell y'all. And Chase was going to do it if I didn't anyway, so might as well be right now. We are not doing an Oscar podcast this year. I know it comes every year, but this year's been weird, guys, so just kind of bear with us. I feel like after all of this, John Bailey's position as president of the Academy is probably on tenterhooks. And if he's voted out and somebody else comes in during the summer, this I think it's in July when the election is. I think it's July. Then I have a feeling that this whole thing, the danger of this is only this year. I don't think that they're going to do this next year. I think that they're going to bring somebody in, if they do, who's a little more sensible about all this. So hopefully we only miss 1 year of this. That's what I'm really hoping for. But for now, yes, because of all the nonsense that occurred and because of the fact that now it's kind of too soon to do anything about it, or too late, I guess, to do anything about it, we are skipping this year. So anyway, setting aside that, Chase, what has been going through your mind the last couple of weeks with all of this?
I just like, I want to let people know, if you were this incompetent at your job and you screw up this bad with this much backlash, you would have been fired and your butt would have been like kicked out on the side of the curb. The fact that this guy still has even a breathing ounce of his job left is quite miraculous. It's asinine, dude. It is just pure asinine, and it's just, I cannot believe they thought it was a good idea to eliminate live award giving and do it during a commercial break, which is probably like a Dove commercial. It's so like, these people work hard. And movies take years and years and years to do. Unless you're Jason Blum and you can shoot, edit, and do your movie in like 10 days. But, it is what it is. Most people spend forever to make a movie, especially editors. Cinematographers are on set for a few months, even in pre-production. So, they got a lot to do. And then editors, I can't even tell you like the task that they have of receiving footage and converting it and then throwing it in a timeline, making sense of the script, and you have to work with the producers and the post-production producers. It's a crazy process. And so, when they announced that, I was like, this is it. This is the nail in the coffin. And it's like Joel said, within a quick turnaround, they changed it, but ever since the popular film thing, backlash. No host, backlash. Now this, extreme backlash, but they course corrected. I don't think he's lasting long. He will be voted out. I cannot believe that. Even if someone, like Joel, this is what frightens me the most, is that even if someone had this idea in the room, and they're like, hey, let's do this, I have no problem with people suggesting things. So this person suggested. My issue is that people agreed with it. There were several people in that room that said, yeah, this is a great idea. And it got majority vote. What? Who's making these decisions? So, yeah, the whole thing is just weird. It is definitely an off year for the Oscars. I don't think... this could go either way. The Oscars are going to have some of the lowest viewership in years, or one of the higher amounts, because people are just curious to see the train wreck. Either way, it's going to make headlines. So, I hate the fact that they're turning the show. I realize that it is a show and you have to produce it and it's a business. I get all that, but don't show all your cards like that and just be like, yeah, we're just going to obliterate everything that is so special about the Oscars in favor of the show part. You can have a good show and also be prestigious. You can eliminate some things and make it shorter if you want. You can do all these things. You just have to be smarter about it. And this is not the smart way to go. I'm glad they course corrected this small little thing, but there's just so much stank behind the academies this year. I feel this is the first time in my life where I've been unmotivated to watch it. I honestly don't care. To where I could just look at the winners, as they come into real time on social media or just the next day. And it's just because of their lack of, just focus. And it just seems like they're just being lazy about everything in favor of the show. It's kind of sad, but it is what it is, Joel.
Yeah, it's weird, man. It's been a ride. But in any case, I'm going to be like you. I'm just going to follow along on my phone at work. Shh, don't tell anyone. No, I'm just kidding. It's gonna be Sunday night.
Hey, Joel's boss that listens to our show maybe occasionally. Joel's gonna be on his phone on the 24th of February, so watch out. The guy's a madman.
Go. All right. So moving on from that catastrophe, almost catastrophe, near catastrophe, whatever. All right.
It's a small tsunami. Not a big one. Like a small one where it's just there's going to be some damage that's going to be done, but at least they course corrected some bigger damage.
Yeah. In any case, all right, guys. Modern entertainment journalism is really amusing sometimes, but Guys, the straw that broke the camel's back and actually made me want to talk about something was what happened just a couple of days ago. Okay, so I don't know. I'm going to start at a weird place, kind of an unexpected place, because I think that they were the ones who alerted me to this. Um, okay, so there is a Twitter account called Film Clickbait. Chase, are you familiar with
I
that?
love it. This is probably one of my
Oh yeah,
favorite accounts to follow because I see Joel liking the posts all the time, and I love reading them. It's just whoever. It's like what Joel put in his Twitter. Whoever you are a hero. Like we need more people
yeah.
like you.
Yeah, I don't know if there are multiple people, if there's like some business in the back end of that account, like it's actually people doing hours of research. I don't know what it is, but they're amazing. They're a public service, and I love them. And they're constantly really funny too, because what they do is they don't have any pretenses about the fact that whoever is doing that is super annoyed by the original post, and so they don't hide that. And they attack it with snark, and it's one of the more successful online snark campaigns I can think of. And they were the ones who alerted me to this thing happening. So, all right, so there was this rumor that was spread by something called Super Movie Bros or something like Super Bro Movies. I can't remember the configuration of words, but anyway, they were reporting. I use that word loosely, that Rian Johnson's Star Wars trilogy that's in the works was going to be canned because of reasons. I actually don't know what the reasons were, but I think it was like he was going to focus on other projects. So this thing came out, and it was a rumor. I think it was passed along by one of the worst websites, uh, probably in general, that isn't like illegal or bad or whatever, but one of the worst um, journalism websites, and I use that term very loosely, that I could think of, and that is comicbook.com. Sorry to give you guys a shout out if any of you listen to us, but I'm just being real with my audience here. It's awful because what they do is they constantly report rumors basing them as fact. They just the other day like had this article that was almost half horribly written. Maybe it wasn't them, or was it? I can't remember who it was, but I'm pretty sure it was them about like some new look at Ben Affleck's Batmobile from Batman v Superman. It's like some new drawing or something, and it's totally irrelevant considering both of the movies came and went and nobody cares anymore. Anyway, apparently that was a news story, and so it's just kind of because of them, they reported this rumor that Rian Johnson was not involved anymore. This blew up on the side of the internet that hates The Last Jedi because people, obviously, there's a certain subset of that fan base that believes that he ruined Star Wars. It's nonsense. Um, but there's that picture kind of or that portrait of Rian Johnson as series ruiner, and childhood ruiner, if you will. Even though apparently they were already ruined by the prequels. I don't know. Um, so I think this was kicked around for about a day. Um, at least I saw it kind of hanging around a day. It may not have been the whole day, but it was a big part of the day. And so it started being reported at places like, Screen Rant or Screen Crush or Screen something, as rumor has it that Rian Johnson's quitting the Star Wars trilogy. Now, these rumors ran until late in the night on, I think it was Wednesday. I think it was Wednesday or Tuesday or Wednesday. And in the midst of them, meaning that they still were going strong after this happened, Rian Johnson on Twitter has an insane level of patience with everyone, and he decided to respond to somebody who brought this up to him, and I think it was Priscilla Page, who I can't remember what she writes for, but she's a film writer, and um, and she was like, "Oh man, this doesn't feel right to me." So uh, I think Ryan Johnson follows her. They interact a lot on Twitter, and he wrote back to her and some of the other people in the comment thread or in the reply thread. No, I'm still working on it. So now we've known for a while that he's only directing the first movie of the trilogy. He's handing off the reins to somebody else, but he's going to be heavily involved in the development and in the writing of all three movies. So it's likely going to be that these other projects people were talking about are going to be projects that he directs after he directs that first one. Entirely possible. But what the rumor made it sound like was that he was going to be giving up entirely the franchise, and that Disney was scrapping the series because of his decision to give it up. And so Johnson himself said that he's still working on it. Now, there's kind of an unseen part of this that I think that people kind of I don't even know if Chase, you were aware of this, but I trolled through Twitter looking at replies to that tweet. I looked at a lot of them, hundreds of them, and there were people saying after he like actually said, "I'm committed to these," saying, "Wow, but he probably isn't. He probably still isn't attached to these," because the feeling is that essentially a lot of times this happens where some director or producer insists upon something about some series and it doesn't come true. The thing that people constantly go back to is J.J. Abrams saying that Benedict Cumberbatch wasn't playing Khan in Star Trek Into Darkness. And for some reason, people think that was misinformation, even though it was just his duty to kind of keep things under wraps. And so, the whole, he was kind of playing chicken with his audience. But yeah, this thing was the straw that broke the camel's back. This thing happens weekly, where some rumor is reported as truth and in major entertainment outlets, and so they have to go through and update them once it's found out not to be true. But this thing blew up, and it happened over the course of at least half a day, maybe more than that, where there was so much outrage, so much backlash to Disney for firing him, and then there was a bunch of celebration from the half of the fan base that hates Johnson. Guys, I'm speaking, and when I say guys, I'm speaking to editors of websites out there. Please, 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 please insist that your writers double and triple source everything. I had an old professional writing professor in college, and this was something that he liked to say. It's a fairly common statement, but I always bring it up whenever something like this happens. The statement is the saying is this, and it's a rule in journalism. If your mother says she loves you, get a second source, because what you do is you pretty much give up any sort of authenticity that you have as a writer if you run off a rumor, look on Twitter for a few minutes, and decide that you've sourced it, when you could, I don't know, try to get Ryan Johnson for a comment, for instance. He had to reply to this on Twitter. He wasn't even asked about it. It was reported as news, and he, the director who was supposedly giving up the series, wasn't asked about it. This is simple journalism stuff, folks. You reach him for comment, and then if he says no, then either you report that there was a rumor, which is stupid, and then you say that Johnson said that it was untrue, or as soon as you find out that it's not true, you scrap the story. It doesn't matter if you need hits on your website. It's not a true story. It was never sourced, and clearly it was never sourced by whoever was the original website. I'm pretty sure it was either Comic Book or Comic Book Resources, one of the two. And it's just anyway. So this was half a news item, a thing that I felt people would find some entertainment in listening to, and also just a plea to editors out there: please tell your writers, and writers, I'm talking to you here too, source your stories, double and triple check everything. It's so simple. It's what you agree to do when you agreed to write these stories. You have some journalistic responsibility. And just, oh my gosh. Anyway, so I would have, if I was a writer in this situation, I would have immediately tried to reach out to Johnson's reps, or maybe I would have just tried something like asking him on Twitter, because that seems to be a fairly direct way of asking things now. So, even if it was privately in a message, I don't know if that would have been possible, but some way of trying to reach him for comment, because man, it's your journalistic integrity. It's not even just your website's credibility. If you don't source things, then people can't trust you to source things in the future. That's how it works. That's why you don't, the same thing with like giving up sources, for instance. Can't do it. And just stop this nonsense. Please do the right thing. So anyway, Chase, were you as pretty much kind of in between amusement and annoyance when you heard about this, or had you heard about this?
Yeah, I think because Joel typically likes all of film clickbait posts. I don't get a chance to do that all the time, but like when he does, it shows up on my timeline, right? So when he did that, that's when this whole like thing started. And I was like, what is this? And so, usually with like film clickbait, I appreciate them because they read through the article and they will tell you in a very sarcastic and very straight tone, this is what the article was about, don't click on it. Because the whole point with like clickbaity headlines nowadays is like, let's just get the click and that's it. You don't worry about anything else. And so, when that, kind of broke from this film bros thing, and then moments later, Ryan Johnson himself commented on it, was like, no, that's not the case. I'm still working on it. And people have to realize, even if Kathleen Kennedy told Ryan Johnson a week before that article came out behind closed doors, hey, we're not going to pursue the trilogy, they're not ready to release it to the public yet. So even if it was true, they're not going to release it in a public statement probably for a while. And if I just, with things like this, it's like Joel said, like, check your sources, please. Like, these people run headlines and just want the clicks, want the hits, and it makes everyone in this business look bad. And by everyone in the business, I mean Joel. Because Joel's going to actually have a career in this, and it makes me angry that stuff like this can fly by and people not have any, like, moral grounds for it. It's just, they're just throwing stuff at a wall and see what sticks. That annoys the crap out of me. I'm glad that, Ryan Johnson, said, like, hey, that's not the case. I don't know where you got your source from, but this is from the horse's mouth, so I don't know what you want me to tell you. But yeah, I'm glad that there's Twitter accounts like Film Clickbait, because they do it correctly. Because that what annoys me the most is when these websites will take like the smallest thing, turn into a giant article just for hits. I think what was it, a couple weeks ago when the Russo brothers were in like some interview with the VFX people for Avengers, they were just asked a very general question. Hey, I heard this movie is going to be 3 hours. Is this true? And they said, it's pretty long. I don't really know if it's 3 hours. It might be. They were kind of vague with their answer. And then these websites will run with Russo Brothers confirmed 3-hour runtime, and like it's a clickbaity headline, and then people click on it. And then when they get to the actual meat of the article, it doesn't even say such a thing. So it's so damaging on people that want to do this as a career. I know Joel's not going to be like an entertainment writer, but he's still going to be in the kind of like writing, critiquing business. And it's just, what if Joel, for every review that he wrote, made some weird headline that had no relevance to the review or anything, and it was just something to get hits? He would feel disgusted with himself. He would. And, it's just, I just can't believe these people exist. But I'm glad that Ryan Johnson spoke out on it. And to go on your comment with the whole, all the people that hated Last Jedi, and ran with this and they're just like, oh, see, look, your thing got canceled because you suck type of deal. What is wrong with you? Like, why do you let these movies take over your life in that way where you have to be so vile? I don't get it. Like, yeah, Joel and I have this show every week and we talk about a thing that we love, but we don't let it ruin our life to a point where we have to like wish ill on like specific people. And even if I say it or Joel says something like that, it's meant in a joking manner. But these people are serious, and it's just, Joel, the whole online community is just toxic sometimes, and it makes me sad. So, yeah, I don't know what else more to say about that. It's just like you said, it's amusing, shocking, sad, and it's just people sometimes.
I'm with you. It was again a ride. All right, so the next bit of news. All right, this is interesting. So back in 2010, right after Shutter Island came out, the next reported movie from director Martin Scorsese and actor Leonardo DiCaprio was said to be The Devil in the White City. This had been in the works a while. It's based on a book. It's pretty well regarded, and it's a big sprawling story that follows the building or the establishment of the World's Fair in Chicago, sort of set against the backdrop of a serial killer kind of run amok in the town or in the city of Chicago, and so people were really excited for this. It's still happening, 9 years later, but it has been, at least in my opinion, downgraded to a Hulu series. Now, I say downgraded, but I'm actually of two minds about this because this is, again, a big sprawling story. So I think that a series might be interesting. The downgraded part is that instead of starring in and directing it, DiCaprio and Scorsese are producing it. I assume, I'm just going to assume this here. I think that what's going to happen is we're going to see a Boardwalk Empire situation. I've only seen the first few episodes of that. I'm not commenting on that in any way, but Scorsese directed the series premiere of that show, and then went on to co-produce it and all of that, oversee it with Terrence Winter, who would later write The Wolf of Wall Street with Scorsese, or for Scorsese. But I have a feeling that what they're going to do is they're going to have Scorsese direct the first episode, but it still will not star DiCaprio. So, again, I'm of two minds. At least it's happening. It's a very interesting story. I've been curious to read the book for a while. I think my dad owns it, actually. I think it's one that he's read. And a really renowned book, but I don't have Hulu, and I don't know if and they're pretty strict about not releasing stuff on physical copy. I'm pretty sure. I've never heard of a Hulu series coming to DVD or anything. So the problem is I don't know if I'm quite up to signing up. We'll see, where I am by the time this all comes together. But yeah, that's my two minds. At least it's still happening, but I feel like this is limiting its audience in a certain way. Obviously, people are going to sign up for Hulu. That's great. If that gets more people to sign up for Hulu. But that's the stipulation. Will people want to see this? Will it turn them on enough? And for me, I'm mixed right now just because I pay for things already. So what's your feeling about this?
I mean, I'm not really sure. I kind of have to see something before I can make a judgment call on that. Hulu, if I had to compare, not really doing too well for me personally on an original series front. I've seen some episodes of The Path. I've seen some episodes of The Handmaid's Tale, which is pretty good. Future Man is up there for me. It's just they're not really hitting out of the park like Netflix. I realize that Netflix has like a bunch of garbage, but their original stuff, some of it is pretty great. And so maybe this could be it, like you said, to bring in more subscribers to the platform. I remember when this story dropped when I was in college, and they were like, they're going to do The Devil in the White City. It's going to be a movie, Leo Scorsese, and now it's going to be a series. Yeah, I'm curious. So I'm hoping, Hulu doesn't really skimp on its like edgier material, more adult material. So I'm hoping with something like this that they don't, hold back on it. They just kind of do what they need to and just make the best story they can. And so I'd be curious, but I need
a violent,
right,
clearly
and
a violent story because it's partly about this long-running serial killer that operates for many years uncaught.
right, and from the episodes I've seen, The Handmaid's Tale and some of Future Man and even The Path, like they do push their limits, but I would love to see them just kind of go like even more so. With this type of story, you kind of need that, and so maybe that's why they did a series on a streaming platform versus a movie, because it could have been just one of those cases to where, yeah, there's a lot of people in this country obsessed with serial killers, but maybe this story was just too violent for, on that type of level on the big screen. So, maybe the small screen will be great for it, but we just have to see stuff from it first.
For sure. All right, our next bit of news is really weird. I'm just going to come out with it and say that before I get to what it is. All right, this is very strange. There's one ray of sunshine, maybe two, along the way here, but Your Name, the animated film from Japan, made my esteemed co-host's top 10 list of 2017. Is getting a remake, and it is going to be directed by Mark Webb of 500 Days of Summer, more recently the Amazing Spider-Man reboot duology, if that's a word, stuff like Gifted and The Only Living Boy in New York, is going to be directing, and okay. So he's going to be directing this for Paramount and Bad Robot, which means that J.J. Abrams is going to produce it alongside the producer of the original film, Genki Kawamura. And they have a screenwriter. Now, this is the thing that I didn't know until opening the story today, which is pretty cool, and that is the fact that the screenwriter is going to be Eric Heiserer, who wrote Arrival. Now, these are kind of hitting similar notes here, because both movies are emotional stories. There's more of a comedic angle in Your Name than Arrival, of course, but both are emotional stories that are sci-fi tinged and ultimately play with time as they go on, particularly at the end. And so I think that that's a good fit for Heiserer to take on this kind of material. But here's where things get a little bit problematic. All right, Your Name is a specifically Japanese movie. It regards a disaster. Let's just say that. That is pretty bad. And so to kind of fashion that into an American story, which is apparently going to follow a kind of a city boy Chicago kid and a young Native American woman from a rural area who are the ones intermittently swapping bodies magically before a disaster threatens their lives. I think that there's going to be an interest. It's going to be interesting to see if they can pull something like that off, because I feel like there was a specificity to the story being told in Your Name, particularly to its backdrop, that I don't know if that's going to translate really well if they're using this other kind of historical backdrop. And so I don't know, man. There's a lot of things that can go wrong with this. I'm certainly going to give it a chance. If it works, it works, but they've got to jump some hurdles. So, what are your thoughts on all of this? Particularly if you think Heiser is a good fit to write it. Do you think that this will work as an American story when it was so specifically Japanese before? What's going on in that head of yours, particularly as an even bigger fan of the movie than I was?
Right. So I'm kind of mixed on it, because I think you nailed it on the head. Like, the writer of Arrival is actually not a bad pick, considering that Arrival kind of deals with jumping in time, science fiction. That's kind of how Your Name is. It's a very epic sci-fi romance, and to some degree, that's exactly what Arrival was. So not a bad pick there. I will agree with you that it is definitely very Japanese, and I don't really know if an American audience would like something like this. And I could be wrong. I know a lot of our listeners are, they don't, none of you guys, or not none, but most of you guys do not live here in the U.S., so I'm actually really curious to see, or, know if you guys would feel that way too. Yeah, it is a very anime type of story to where it fit animation so perfectly. And first of all, this movie's going to be expensive, especially if they're going to go down with the whole meteor hitting Earth storyline. That could be very costly. I just see it as a waste, to be honest with you. Even with the writer of Arrival, if I'm thinking business-wise, creative-wise, and even if it will work well as an American adaptation, I'm not really feeling it. And I know Joel claims that Mark Webb has done stuff after Amazing Spider-Man 2, which could be true if you look at the IMDb, but I want to romanticize myself and say that he didn't do anything after Amazing Spider-Man 2 because it was so horrid that he had to go hide in a cave for a little bit. So now that he's coming out of it... No, it's 100% true. So now that he has emerged from his cave and now he's going to make this, I don't think he's a good fit. And joking aside, I realize he's done stuff post Spider-Man. He did he did Gifted, which is like a quieter film. 500 Days of Summer's a romantic comedy, and then of course Spider-Man is the only real true test to actually know if he can even do this story, because Amazing Spider-Man is an epic of some sort.
Big budget.
Right. And so that is the only gauge that we have with him. But the problem is the Amazing Spider-Man franchise is subpar. So he's not really a good pick to me. I just think this is a waste of money, to be honest with you. I don't think a lot of people would even care to see this. If you guys want to see this, I'm telling you right now, as an animation, as an anime, as just a really good story, it is a really, really great movie. So watch the animated one. You don't have to watch a live action remake. So that's my 2 cents on that. If you want to watch it in its only form that it's in right now, because I don't think this is going to turn out well.
Yeah, we're pretty much in the same boat here. Ugh. Anyway, yeah, one ray of hope for me is that Heiser is involved, and that it's just because he's done interesting work. He's certainly come a long way from Final Destination 5. That was a movie he wrote.
Joel,
and I know
Final Destination 5 is
like
actually a good one.
No. I like it. I said it recently. It was my favorite. I just think that it's just interesting how much more high art, like some of his projects have been. Sorry, I didn't want to. Again, I like the Final Destination franchise, except the third one. I just think it's funny that he's come from kind of that fifth movie in the franchise, the only one he wrote, I think, to something like Arrival and being nominated for an Oscar. It's just an interesting turn. So it's been fun to watch.
Joel,
all right,
I
guys,
have a question to ask you, just real quick.
Okay.
Have you been cast in Dune yet? If not, then you're a loser because everyone else has.
Insert Oprah Winfrey, you get a car gift here.
You get cast in Dune. You get cast in Dune.
Yeah, so that's where I'm going here first. We got some casting news, and I'm just gonna quote Collider here, the writer over there, Jeff Snyder, who opened his little article about noting these latest couple of additions to the cast of Denis Villeneuve's new Dune reboot. Who knew that the song "All the Stars" from Black Panther was actually about this movie? Because this is insane. Just within the last couple of weeks, we've had additions like Josh Brolin and Oscar Isaac, and now within the past couple of days, we've also had was it Javier Bardem, or was he already in it? I can't remember. Jason Momoa is now in it. So I'm just going to read off this cast, and that's all I'm going to say about it, all right? And then I'll move on, because it pretty much speaks for itself. So in the lead, we have Timothée Chalamet. He's taking the role that Kyle MacLachlan had in the original movie. And then his co-stars are going to be people like Oscar Isaac, Rebecca Ferguson, Javier Bardem, Dave Bautista, Zendaya, Stellan Skarsgård, Charlotte Rampling, now Jason Momoa. So first, it's bizarre that we have Bautista and Momoa in a movie together. That's going to be really interesting to see if they're going to, for instance, share screen time. They'll probably have to like shoot that scene in IMAX to fit them both in the frame. And yeah, that's all I'm going to say. It's an insane cast, crazy. It's coming from screenwriters Eric Roth of Forrest Gump and John Spates of Prometheus. This thing has full power all behind it. It's insane. It's coming out. They just announced within the last hour or two, November 20th of 2020. So it's going to be the Thanksgiving delight. Yeah, they took advantage of that release date because of Fantastic Beasts 3 being delayed. So that's pretty nice. All right. Now, the next one is really cool. Chris Evans is moving from Captain America to a movie about a man who is haunted by memories of two past lives. And it turns out that there's a centuries-old secret societies of other individuals who remember their own past lives, and they use their abilities to affect change throughout history. This is freaking awesome. It's called Infinite, and it's going to star Chris Evans. It's going to be directed by Antoine Fuqua, and it's going to be co-written by John Lee Hancock and produced by Lorenzo di Bonaventura, who's kind of a legend and Transformers veteran. Some of that's kind of a mixed bag in terms of behind the camera, but still, the idea is awesome. It's based on a novel called The Reincarnationist Papers, which I think that was smart to retitle it to Infinite because that's a mouthful. But I love this idea. It's a great concept. The next bit is that Tom Hanks is going to be reteaming with the director of Captain Phillips, that is Paul Greengrass, for a movie called News of the World. Now, I will admit that whenever I first saw this, I thought, oh, maybe he's going to be playing like Walter Cronkite, because I wouldn't be surprised at this point, although I think that Seth Rogen's still involved in that one project. But no, it is not. He's again playing a captain, and he's playing Jefferson Kyle Kidd. It's 1870, and he gives live readings to paying audiences hungry for news from the world. And he's an elderly widower. He's got his own little solitary existence, and he's offered a $50 gold piece to deliver a young orphan to her relatives in San Antonio. 4 years earlier, this girl was the only survivor of a terrible attack, and now she's been wandering away from home, and it's about their 400-mile journey south. This is a really cool project for somebody like Greengrass, who hasn't done a movie within this period of the mid to the late 1870s before, or mid to late 1800s, I should say. So I'm interested to see him kind of adopt the style of his movies, which have included stuff like United 93 and 22 July and the Bourne series, to that period of time. Is he going to refine it a bit, maybe do a little more Steadicam? We'll see, but it's really interesting. So I'm liking that bit of news a lot. And this last one is pretty insane. It's hard to pick a favorite, guys. I would just say. So this last one we don't know the plot for. It's set in London's Soho district, but anyway, it is a psychological horror thriller from director Edgar Wright. And it is going to star Anya Taylor-Joy, of course, from Split and The Witch. No stranger to psychological horror thrillers, but Wright is, and I think that this is really interesting. It comes from the writer for Penny Dreadful, the show on TV with Josh Hartnett, Christy Wilson Cairns, and previously, the rumor was he was going to be attached to a movie called Grasshopper Jungle. That's been pushed off. He also had one called Collider that was pushed off. He had an animated movie, but this is going to be his next project. I'm really excited. I'm always excited for new Edgar Wright. I love Edgar Wright's films, and I can't wait to see what he's got up his sleeve in terms of a complete 180 for tonally. And So yeah, really excited. I love all of these bits of casting news. I think that these are all impossible to choose a favorite from. Let's just say that. Maybe most obviously would be the Dune casting because it keeps growing, but I'm interested in all of these. So Chase, do you have a clear favorite, or is it pretty tough for you to choose?
Well, I need to start out with this breaking news: my left shoe has been cast in Dune. So, yeah, with the Dune casting, it's kind of amazing that Villeneuve is working with two actors you would never suspect to be in these type of movies. With like, because Bautista was also in Blade Runner 2049. Now with Momoa, like, so he's kind of tapping into like because I know Momoa's not a wrestler, but like that wrestler type of build and acting style. So that's really cool. Josh Brolin joining him, or joining that makes total sense. He worked with him on Sicario. Yeah, the Chris Evans thing. I gotta tell you, Chris Evans is having a very nice post Avengers Endgame lineup so far, because not only does he have this amazing sounding movie with Infinite, he also has that Knives Out movie with Ryan Johnson. That I think it's like a murder mystery, almost like Clue. So he's got those two movies.
I think it just wrapped.
Right. So I think that they just got done filming and everything, and I think that releases later this year. But yeah, and Hemsworth is starting to kind of like go up there in terms of the Avengers cast, but Chris Evans has the best lineup so far post his franchise, so that's great. Yeah, Tom Hanks and Paul Greengrass. Captain Phillips is a really great movie, and yes, it spawned the meme. I am the captain now. Yes, we can all laugh. But that last 10 to 15 minutes is some of the best Tom Hanks performance, period. Like in his career, yeah. Like when he breaks down on the boat like that, like you almost like ache, like your heart aches when you watch that, and that's all him. That's all Hanks. That's why he's the master, and him working with Greengrass again makes total sense, because Captain Phillips was a great movie. And then Anya Taylor-Joy, give me more of her. Give me more of Edgar Wright. I'm all down for it. I want to see her explode in a movie where, yes, The Witch was good. I still love The Witch. And she's fine in Split and Glass. Like, she tries. But I want to see her... I just want to see, like, a different side of her. I want to see her career explode from that one role that we talk about. And I think this might be it. It's kind of how, with Baby Driver and Ansel Elgort. Yeah, he was the Fault in Our Stars kid, but, after Baby Driver, I have more respect for him now because he's just that good. He commands the screen. And that's what I want Anya to do. And I think under Edgar Wright's direction, that's a recipe for success. So, yeah, I'm just like with you. I can't decide. They're all great, but as long as the Dune cast keeps growing, we're going to be in good hands. Next week, Joel will finally announce that his trash can in his kitchen was cast in Dune. We're all going to be clapping for it. And so, we joke about it, but I don't think Momoa is going to be it. I think there's going to be more casting from that movie as it starts to start production. So that should be fun.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was somebody on my page was like, this is becoming another Avengers.
Right.
In terms of the cast, just how deep it is already. All right, guys. So, impossible for me to choose a favorite. I just can't do it. So we're going to move on to our reviews. So, of course, we missed last weekend, and our first review is going to be for The Lego Movie 2, the second part. Now, as the title suggests, this is a direct sequel to 2014's The Lego Movie, whereas the 1-2 punch in 2017 of the Lego Batman movie and the Lego Ninjago movie were respectively a direct spin-off and a mostly unrelated franchise tie-in. This one picks up immediately upon the end of the Lego movie as a group of aliens from the planet Diplo have attacked Emmett, voiced by Chris Pratt, and all of his friends. And as one might remember, the reason for that attack rests in the wraparound story that takes place in real life. You might remember that at the end we learn that the child character played by Jaden Sand, I think is his name, has a little sister. So I'm not going to talk much about that part except in broad terms in this, because I don't want to reveal too much about what happens there. I also don't want to reveal the actress, the terrific actress that got to play the role of the little sister. I want to leave that a surprise, and I guess I'll ask on the spot Chase to do the same, just because it was a surprise for cinephiles. Younger people are probably not going to know until next time they see that person, but it's a pretty big coup of them to get that actress to play this role. So I want to leave most of that to people's kind of surprise, and also the story elements. I will just say that a lot of the wraparound story here has to do with sibling rivalry, and it's quite touching. And it's touching in a way that the original film was too. And I'll get to that in my part of the review later on. But the plot within the plot here follows Emmett and his friends as 5 years after that attack, Bricksburg has become Apocalypseburg. Haha, get it? And it's kind of reminiscent of the Mad Max franchise in a way. You have Wildstyle, now going by Lucy and voiced by Elizabeth Banks, brooding, giving brooding soliloquies and all of that. Batman's off on his own at the beginning of the story, on his own standalone adventure. Meanwhile, Emmett is the only one really in this world who has kept his outlook on life, which is that everything is awesome. And here, though, things are complicated when a new threat arises, and that is, oh my gosh, Princess whatever Wannabe. Now, I'm just going to give you all a hint. Sound that name out. It might help with some context late in the film. So, Princess or Queen. Anyway, this villain is kind of a shapeshifter. She never takes a solid shape, but she wants some sort of marriage arrangement with Batman for nefarious purposes. She has a lieutenant named Captain Mayhem at her disposal, and it all kind of becomes a big battle near the end, especially because of the mysterious presence of an archaeologist and raptor trainer named Rex Dangervest. Kind of comes into the fray and the plot in ways that I will not reveal. It's actually kind of hard to talk about this movie. I've discovered, because a lot of it requires some tiptoeing around the surprises in the third act, and also in that wraparound story, which takes up much of the third act, actually. And yeah, so I'm just going to hand it over to Chase for his review of the Lego Movie 2. What did you think, Chase?
All right, so from the director of Deuce Bigelow, Male Gigolo, and Trolls, we have the Lego Movie 2, the second part. That is not a joke. Those are actually two films on his filmography. So, right. So, back in 2014, the Lego Movie came out, and it surprised everybody because, we're sitting there thinking, oh, wow, Warner Brothers, you're really going to the bottom of the barrel making a movie about Lego pieces. That's cute. Why are we doing this? Lo and behold, the movie's actually pretty clever. It's sharp. It's brightly animated. It's great for kids. It's great for adults. And it had a catchy song to it. And it made us grown men really angry and shaking our fist at the screen when we realized that it wasn't nominated for Best Animated Feature. So, I really love that movie. I know Joel loves it. I know Mark loves it. Our friend Jackson, he loves it. Like everyone within our age group, older, younger, everyone adores that movie. And so, with the sequel, I was looking forward to it because I wanted to see where they would take the continuation of where we left off, because where we left off in the first one was a setup for a continuing storyline. I was curious to see where they would go. But the problem is, I love the Lego Batman movie. It's a really, really great Batman story while also still being a parody of the Batman lore and everything. It's just, I thought that was a really well-rounded movie. I never saw Ninjago, but if you look at box office returns, the first Lego movie opened up to like 69. Batman opened up to like 50-something. Ninjago opened up to like 20-something. And with the Lego Movie 2, since it was last week, it opened up to like 34. So people are starting to get kind of oversaturated with this property. So it made me like really worried when I saw that number, going into the movie, because I actually saw it after its first weekend release. So, being a fan of the first one and realizing that the diminishing returns on this franchise is really palpable and kind of frightening, because they could easily just stop it after the money it's making. It's not doing well. I gotta tell you, I like this movie quite a bit. Not as much as the first one, but I will say that this is a very enjoyable sequel that, like Joel said, this is hard to review because the third act has some neat little surprises in it. And I will say that it caught me off guard. I was not expecting it, and I will attribute that to Phil Lord and Chris Miller's writing, because these guys are always clever in their writing style, and they wrote the screenplay, and so they threw a curveball, and I think it worked for the most part. But what I liked about the story the most is exactly what Joel touched upon without spoiling anything or really going into it, is this idea of sibling rivalry and how it played into the actual Lego story. And so, at the end of this is not really a spoiler, but at the end of the first one, we have the sister's toys coming on to her brother's Lego sets. And so it's like an alien invasion. These Lego pieces don't know what they're doing. And now we've jumped ahead in time to where the sisters' toys have taken over, so to speak. Now the Lego set's like this Mad Max Fury Road situation. And it's funny because of the visual styling. It's a great visual gag, but it's also a really great representation of how siblings feel when the other encroaches on one's play area. And I thought that was extremely clever and really well written. And I agree with Joel, quite touching, because we I know Joel and I can speak for ourselves, but we grew up with siblings, and so that kind of got to me to where I was like, that's really smart to take the that kind of thematic element that a lot of us kind of go through and apply it to the Lego movie as the backdrop. And so I thought, the thematic weight with the brother and sister thing is something we can all kind of connect to, but also can play off to some really great visual humor within this kind of apocalypse Berg type of setting. And so, yeah, I really like the story quite a bit. The ending of the movie, like I said, the surprises and everything, I think I like for the most part. I'm still kind of unsure what I think about a specific thing, and I'll actually talk to Joel briefly when we stop recording, because I'm a little confused on it. But besides that one little element, I liked everything else about it. So the overall story worked for me. To get to the humor, which is the heart and soul of this entire franchise, I think for the most part, 95% of the time, I was hooting and hollering. It was just as fresh and quick-witted as the first one. Now, just like the first one, there are a lot of jokes that fly at you at 1,000 miles an hour, and I am not going to lie to you guys. I was in a theater filled with people my age and children, right? there were, I think, 3 specific times, so very, very, very small amount. 3 specific times where no one laughed at all, and even the crickets who were supposed to chirp while we were silent were also silent because they didn't think it was funny. So there were a few moments in the movie where it was going a little too fast, or maybe it just didn't register with all of us. But I swear to you, there were 3 distinct times it just fell flat and just went completely silent in the theater. But for the most part, everyone, I was feeding off the energy in the room, and everyone was having a good time and laughing quite a bit throughout the movie, and I was too. And I thought the kind of tongue-in-cheek humor, the risque humor, the child humor, it's just all of it worked well, just like I did with the first one. To get into the directing style of Mike Mitchell, I think he kind of incorporates what Lord Miller brought with the first one. It seems like a pretty fluid transition from the first one, and this one kind of goes into more territory than the first one in terms of locations and more live action scenes. And so there is a lot of new stuff to be had, but I thought the actual transition mantle from these directors to this director was pretty fluid. And I thought Mitchell had a pretty great eye in terms of how the Lego designs were going to look and how the live action stuff was going to look, because there was a couple of shots in the live action part of it, without spoiling anything, that was actually really, really good, and kind of almost had a tear roll down my eye just from the way it was shot and the action that was happening in the background versus the foreground. It was just some really great stuff on his part on a visionary front. The voice performances, once again, great. I mean, there's really no weak spot. Like even with people that have like 1 or 2 lines, they're still great in their role because they are having so much fun with this. Pratt is energetic as Emmett, just like the first one. He's very optimistic, and he's lovable even when he goofs up. You have a Wild Style, a.k.a. Lucy, a.k.a. Goes by many different names in this one. Elizabeth Banks, she's always a great kind of strong voice that you kind of need to cut through Emmett's optimism a little bit, so she's a little pessimistic. That's why their relationship works so well. And, of course, Will Arnett as Batman always gets me. Definitely toned down from the first one in terms of screen presence, just because he had his own movie, and so you don't really need to, but he was still a nice accompaniment. Tiffany Haddish is one of the new voices. She, oddly enough, fits an animated character very well with her voice. I've seen a lot of her live action stuff to where I just didn't even think about her being in an animated movie, but it definitely works for me. And then all the other people, like I said, so small in the role, you can't really judge them on performance, but, the core people are there in the voice booth really giving it their all. And then the live action people, the kids and parents and everything, the parents were there. They served their purpose, but it was more about the kids, and I thought they were very pleasant performances, really kind of just highlighting this kind of sibling rivalry that they face, especially given the brother is older and the sister's younger, so that you have the age difference as well. And so I thought it was a pleasant little back and forth that they would have. To go to the animation is bright, it's vivid, it's creative. I love the fact that it looks like it's stop motion, but it's not. It's fully 3D animated, but they animate in such a way to where like they skip it looks like they skip like every 3 or 4 frames, and that's what gives it that kind of like jagged stop motion look, and it just adds so much to the flow of the movie. Because when you think about Lego pieces, when like Joel and I were kids, you would create your pieces and like you would move like the people and move it with your hand to make it look like it was stop motion. So just implementing that like kind of style, from the first one and the second one, it's just so great to look at. And it fooled me the first time because the first time when I watched the first movie, I thought it was stop motion. No, it's full on 3D animated. So it's just impressive. And then the song choices that they have for this one, Everything Is Not Awesome, and then a couple ones that Tiffany Haddish's character sings. Here's the thing with those is that I get why they're there, and I get that it's kind of like a, kind of like self-referencing, like, villains that would like sing their plans and everything. I get that. I just, I don't know if it was like the sound design, but first of all, I could barely hear the dialogue that she was saying in those songs, and I didn't really care for them, to be honest with you. In terms of her, I wish she just would have played the, her character, straight, no songs. But I could be wrong. I'm sure Joel has a different opinion on that. So I felt those were out of place, even though I knew what they were doing in terms of the way they wrote her. But yeah, oddly enough, besides the Everything Is Not Awesome, nothing really else stood out to me except for the end credit song, which I've liked. I liked in the first one as well, because the Lonely Island did the first one, and then the second one, of course, Andy Samberg's voice is very present, and they do another one. And I thought this one was actually funnier because they were singing about the credits. They were like, singing about people's positions and stuff, and I thought that was kind of cool. So all in all, I really, really like it. Definitely does not have the same impact as the first one did on me, but man, I had such a great time with this one. I really like the evolution of the story and the way they took it, considering where they left off on the first one and where they leave off on this one. The possibilities are endless for the Lego Movie 3, and where they could take the story and kind of mature it even more, and that gets me kind of excited. But the problem is, like I said at the beginning, the diminishing returns on this are not good. Especially when the first one opens up to 69 million, this one opened up to 34. I can't believe that Warner Brothers was able to oversaturate the Lego market within 4 movies in 5 years. Like that's incredible to me. So I don't know what the fate of this franchise is, but I love the first one. I like this one quite a bit. I thought about this one for a while, and I'm okay with giving the Lego Movie 2 the second part, which I still think it should have been called the second piece, but whatever. The second part, I will give a B+, just because on an animation level, it's impressive to look at. It's got a lot of stuff for kids and adults to appreciate. I love the evolution of the story and where they took it. It's really clever stuff. And it's a fierce movie, in terms of comedy and animation. It's very aggressive, but it's not overdone. It works just right. And so, yeah, B+ for me, and I'm curious to see Joel's spin on it.
I'm just going just a little bit lower with a B, but it's strong work all around. The wraparound story, I've kind of had my say. I think it's quite touching, and you're right, it should be interesting to see where they take this if they do a third one. I also could see this being the end just because of where it leaves off too.
Right.
But we'll see. I mean, it does sort of sequel sting, but it also kind of comes to a place of resolution, in a way that is like the story might continue, but we might not see it, sort of like that. But whatever. I like where they take that. The relationship is really well developed, and the performances are good. So I like that. But the story within the story, the Lego Movie itself, if you will, I liked, and I think that it's maybe a little less consistently funny than you're saying. Maybe in terms of how much I laughed, yes. But there's an absurdist spirit to the first movie that I thought this one kind of lacked. Maybe was missing just in terms of how much they did in the first one. every frame was filled with a joke, and here I feel like maybe a little bit fewer frames were filled with jokes, and it's also a little bit more focused on plot than the first movie was. And what I'm talking about is this plot involving the Legos. Here I felt, these characters are kind of confronting destinies, and there are backstabbings and revelations and stuff, and that's a little plotty, if you will. So that was a little less effective, but it's so much fun, and it's just enjoyable to watch. It's definitely not the strongest. For instance, it doesn't come close to the first film, and that's that kind of the thing that everything needs to begin with. It's a little less. It's just a little less appealing, I guess, than that first movie was, especially on its first watch. There's not that kind of joy that you walk away from in the first movie. You don't walk away from it with this one. And I would say that maybe the Lego Batman movie was a little bit stronger too. I was not on the show.
I
don't
agree.
think I was.
If I had to rank them right now, I love the first Lego movie, but there was something kind of special about that Lego Batman movie that I can't seem to get out of my head. So I would actually rank that as my favorite so far.
Okay, well, my favorite is the first one. Then it goes Batman, then this one, then a big jump in the Ninjago movie, which I didn't like. There wasn't as much spirit. It really wasn't making a very salient point about any of its characters, really, even the wraparound story. Just a lot of broad stuff, and it just didn't work as well. But and I don't remember most of it, honestly. It was just very forgettable. But this one has a little more staying power. And I actually wonder if it's possible that people saw the Lego Movie 2 and then just kind of went and flashed back to the two movies they had in 2017. Maybe remember that one of them wasn't very good, and then just didn't come to this. That's what I'm wondering. People just were like, "Oh, another Lego movie," and didn't think about the joy they felt, or they might have felt, in that first one. That's the only thing I can think happened here, with the box office returns, and it is sad because I definitely want to see a third one. We'll see if they actually spring for that, given that this only opened with less than half of what the first movie opened with. So we'll see. But it's fun, and you're so right about the voice work. I really like Chris Pratt in this role. There's a jolliness to his voice. I mean, and of course this is played by Andy Dwyer, because there's a jolliness to his voice and the way he delivers all of the dialogue, and just the way he reacts to stuff, or has Emmett react to stuff, I should say, that's just so likable. And yeah, he's fun. And then Banks, excellent. She's a national treasure anyway, and she's great here. The person that surprised me, and this is the part where we kind of diverge, is Tiffany Haddish, who I thought had this interesting thing going where it's this character who's trying to be kind of menacing, while trying to put up the facade of niceness. And that's what the song is all about. And that's why I like this song so much. I'm basically, I'm not evil, but here's all the reasons why you should think I am. And they're all, cloaked in niceness. And it's a really funny, witty song. I'm sad that you couldn't hear the lyrics. I was able to make them out, and they're all really fun. Or I should say, you couldn't hear all the lyrics. I'm sure you heard some of them, but
right.
But yeah, I mean,
I heard splotches, and I wonder if it was just the way the speaker system was set up.
Yeah, I mean, it's also mixed kind of loud. It's weird. Like, there's a couple of other songs in the movie, and you can hear them fine, but that song that she does sing, it is a little loud. They go a little heavy on the score.
No,
so
I'm not going to say it was horrible, because I'm not getting Vietnam flashbacks when Joel and I saw Beauty and the Beast, because that was terrible sound design. This was just more of like, it probably was just the speakers, but there were definitely blurbs of dialogue in the song I just could not make out at all.
Yeah. And that's understandable. It is a loud mix, and that's a problem with the scene. Not certainly not on the level of Be Our Guest, which was absolutely indecipherable in Beauty and the Beast. And you're right, it's awful. Um, and yeah, but it's a fun song, and it kind of reflects the movie's spirit and the message, because within that, I think that there's this story, because what we see a lot in this movie, and I noticed this, is okay. So within the story, you have a lot of forces fighting against these intruding aliens and all of their ships and all of that, and none of their attempts work, and it kind of reminds me of, again, this idea of sibling rivalry. And when you have sibling playtime, the younger sibling tends to want to come out on top because they're trying to find their place in this weird shifted power dynamic between the siblings. And I'm a younger sibling. There's no sibling younger than I am in my family. And so I'm the younger sibling. My oldest brother, I'm 10 years younger than him, so I wasn't around him so much in my childhood, but I was around my middle-aged brother, who is 7 years older than me, and we would play video games all the time. And since he's significantly older and more experienced at them, he would win a lot. So whenever I was 8 or 9, he was 15 or 16, and we were, playing GoldenEye 007, for instance, on the N64, or Legend of Zelda, or mostly GoldenEye, because that was the two-player game that we would play with each other. He would come out on top, and I would say that it was not fair and try to make up all of these arbitrary rules why this is going on. And so you kind of think that that's kind of what's going on the outside of this story between these two siblings, that the younger sister has kind of created all of these arbitrary rules of invincibility in her playthings, that if some character in his world shoots like this super strong missile at a foe, it'll just bounce off because the sister has decided that the foe is invincible. And so that's a really special thing to kind of bring into this world. And that's why I keep coming back to the wraparound story without trying to give anything about the specifics of it away, because it all rests in that. Much like the first film is about this kid trying to instill a sense of fun in his, mostly business-like dad. Get it? And then here you have this sibling dynamic that is kind of rooted in the older brother's stubbornness, and it just comes to this place of such understanding and compassion, and it's just so moving. And yeah, so that's why I'm giving it a B. I can't really say much more about it, just because it's fun and it's touching, and it doesn't quite have as much staying power as a couple of the other movies in this franchise, but it is good, and it is a lot of fun, and it deserves a better fate than the one that it was consigned to at the box office. It's a really charming, fun time, beautifully animated. I mean, of course, all of them, even Ninjago, have been. The jerky quality, it's how we play with Legos. They're very solid. That's how they were built.
So I have to ask you, because I've heard you talk about it, and I've seen Mark's review on it. Do you think if they had less live action scenes like they did in the first one, it would have had just as much of an impact?
Not necessarily. I think that my problem is to do with the kind of the attitude toward absurdism that the first film had. This one kind of lacks a little bit. Maybe there's a world weariness, almost like the maturing characters are kind of interfering with that. Whatever it is, it's probably inherent, and it can't really be fixed, so to speak. It's not my job to try to figure out what to fix in these things, but I would say that maybe it just comes with the territory of these human characters aging, and thus some of that absurdism, especially as the older kid kind of matures and comes up with storylines that are actually elaborate and has the intelligence to do that. Maybe didn't have quite that much in the first movie, and that's fine. I think that it just kind of, for the purposes of the film being an entertainment, it's maybe less effective because of that. Just because of an inherent quality that maybe can't be fixed with quotes around it. Again, it's not my job to figure that out. I just think it comes with the territory.
Right. Because I still think the genius part about this movie is seeing the Lego sets and the Lego storylines reflect the inner emotions of like the kids, and I'm like, this is so clever. It almost makes me sick to know that like Miller and Lord thought of this like all the way through, and like it has relevance to the entertainment value of the Lego story they were watching, but also to the human characters, and I thought that was awesome.
And it's interesting. I think I see now, sort of, maybe even subconsciously, I don't even know if you realized it, but why the Lego Batman movie was your favorite. Because it didn't have those. It didn't have the wraparound story around it. We don't know how that all played out in the real world because there was nothing that indicated that it existed. It might have just been something in the kid's mind, and he never actually brought his toys out. We don't know. We don't know what happened there. I think that the cleverness is absolutely in there. The thing that I'm talking about with the absurdism is that there was a freeness almost to how the first movie didn't really confine itself to a plot. It was, the characters were constantly reinventing themselves. There was, Metalbeard had like a bunch of various parts of other toys and everything attached to him. And that was sort of reflective of the movie around him, where you had also Gandalf and Dumbledore and Shaquille O'Neal all in the same frame. And so I think that the joy is what's not lacking, but just less there here. And it's reflective of the story in the wraparound story. But again, we're getting into inherent problems or inherent devices here.
Right.
Because we're also dealing with an older character.
Yeah, and I understand where you're coming from. I guess I just I totally get it.
Yeah. In any case, it's a good movie. People should see it. I don't know why it struggled so much at the box office. It's weird. We don't know the budget on these things, so I don't know how much it struggled there. But it did make much less than the original, and that's definitely not a good sign. So, rather disappointing there, but good movie. So
speaking
B for
of
me,
giant
B plus from
budgets.
Chase. Oh yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Oh,
so
wait.
B for me, B plus from Chase. Let us know what your thoughts are.
I was just like, that was a terrible segue because Joel stopped me. I was just like, oh no, did I word that wrong or something?
No. I was just finishing the sentence.
Right.
But yeah, so our next review is Alita: Battle Angel. Now this one comes from director Robert Rodriguez, and it is an adaptation of a manga series that ran from 1990 to 1995. It's also received its own Japanese Battle Angel Alita adaptation. And this one is the one for American audiences primarily. And it comes from director Robert Rodriguez, screenwriters James Cameron and Alita Kalogridis, who are the screenwriters here. Now this one follows Alita, a cyborg played in a motion capture performance by Rosa Salazar, who is found among a trash heap by Dr. Ito, a father figure for her who is played by Christoph Waltz, and takes her back to his house, gives her a new body, and finds that her human brain is functioning. So she kind of comes to her own in this city called Iron City, which exists in the shadow of a floating city called Zalem. And Zalem is kind of a mecca for a lot of these people who have been relegated to poverty in this futuristic world. And meanwhile, up above, their entire economic system seems to be placed around a game called Motorball. This is kind of a weird and psychopathic mix of roller derby and I'm just going to put this like a friend of mine did, a colleague of mine, Mike McGranahan, who put it this way. It's a mix between roller derby and randomly murdering people, because this thing is fatal. If you lose, it's because you have died horrifically in an incredibly violent game. Alita finds that she is, one, very good at this game, because of her tendencies, and two, that she is an incredible warrior with an instinctive fighting style that is an ancient martial art, and Dr. Ito wants to protect her from the outside world, but she wants to discover her power. So she has kind of happened upon this plot to retrieve the technology within her body by some mysterious figures played by Jennifer Connelly, Mahershala Ali, and an unseen actor who goes uncredited and only appears in the last 5 minutes. I will not reveal who that is, but it's surprising. And so that's pretty much the plot of this movie. Another subplot is that she kind of is taken around the city by a love interest named Hugo, played by Kean Johnson, and becomes kind of this hunter-warrior vigilante among Iron City, protecting its citizens from foes. So, Chase, as always, go ahead with your review, sir.
Okay, so, going into this, I was slightly excited for it. I do, even though he sounds like he would be a very weird person to talk to in real life, I've always appreciated James Cameron and anything that he brings to the big screen, whether it is producing or directing. I love me some True Lies, the Terminator films, Titanic, and I'm one of those weird people that like Avatar. Yes, the 3-hour-long cut. And then, of course, Robert Rodriguez with, Sin City, and I started out with Spy Kids. I still have yet to see, his live-action Antonio Banderas movies, but I do recognize that he is a very talented director, and I think for someone that primarily works on green screen, it was interesting to see him kind of take on a more live action film that has a lot of green screen work mixed in with practical sets, mixed in with mocap, mixed in with 3D animation. It was almost like he was elevating as a filmmaker. So with all that, plus the trailer that I have enjoyed, and it feels like Joel and I saw that trailer 2 years ago. I gotta tell you, I came out of that movie liking it. I definitely think there's issues with it, and I'll get to the big one in just a second because it's right off at the top. But I'll start with Rodriguez first, because I think when you are given a budget of this much money, it is easy to screw it up visually. I can tell you guys this right now. I'm going to get it out of the way at the top. This is a visually technical achievement. It is stunning to look at. Some of the practical sets, borderline almost TV movie, but I think for the most part, they capture a really great world building of this place down at the bottom and the place at the top, and of course the mocap from Rosa Salazar or even Ed Skrein or even some of the random people that Alita encounters. It's breathtaking stuff, and that's something that I've never once doubted on James Cameron. The guy knows how to make movies that evolve around 3D or mocap. This is what he does. This is the world he's been in for over a decade now. This is his life. So he's going to take care of that aspect of the film, and Rodriguez definitely brought the vision to it. So on a visual and technical level, it's pretty miraculous. And, Rodriguez does develop, like I said, this world building, this sense of, a real life breathing city with people and, a lot of practical stuff moving around. So it does look nice, and it does look like it's a very lived in set, and I really appreciate that. So here are where the issues lie, because I rarely have issues with Rodriguez, because his sole role in this movie was a director, and I think from a visual standpoint and getting performances out of his actors, he did a good job. The problem is the script. Now, a lot of people have been pointing out lines of dialogue being kind of hokey. Sure, that doesn't really bother me that much. My problem with the script is the kind of Mortal Engines attitude, where there are some things kind of thrown at you very quickly and kind of dissipated towards the end, to where you go, okay, that might have been a part of the actual source material, but it doesn't play well as in a movie adaptation, and it doesn't earn anything. So, case in point, the last 10, 15, or I would say last 10 minutes of this movie are irritating. Absolutely hated it. Up until that point, the story itself was fine. I was more invested into the world building and the characters rather than the story. That's not saying I wouldn't be excited for a sequel, because believe it or not, I wouldn't mind seeing a sequel. But the story, you know, the way it was written, like I said, it was fine. It was just more about what I was seeing was what kept me interested. And then towards the end, I grown to love Alita and Rosa Salazar's performance. But that last 10 minutes was just, it just wasn't good. It's broken up into two parts. Like I said, without spoiling anything, the first thing is that there's a character that is, let's just say, very prevalent in the movie, and then just goes. It's just gone. Something happens, and then they're just gone. And that moment to me was not earned. It really wasn't, because you're kind of developing this relationship, this back and forth between two people, and even if you wanted to do the ending that you wanted to, I just don't think the emotional arc was there to justify that person going and it meaning something. So that irritated me, because it almost was just like, oh, we have nothing to do, bye-bye. And then at the very, very end, with the whole introduction of the uncredited actor, I did not like it, because that just showed me, okay, so we have this kind of like puppet master that was operating the strings from up above, and we're going to show them at the last second and set up for a sequel and then just cut to credits. If you were going to do that, you should have put that uncredited person a little further into the movie, and that would have made it more impactful to see that person's face at the very end. Maybe not show them early in the movie, but either have more voice, insertions, or the back of the head, or just shadows or something. I mean, Dr. Claude, if you have to, and don't show anything, and work around it. But I just feel like that reveal was just them going, oh, we got to set up for that sequel. Here we go. And it really didn't have any effect on me whatsoever. So you should have introduced that person a lot earlier into the movie, and it probably would have made a bigger difference. So that is my main issues with the movie, by the way, are the last 10 minutes of that movie, just kind of a really sad, flat note to leave the theater out of. And some of the characters are a bit underused. I know a lot of people have a problem with that too, and I will agree. I thought Mahershala Ali was wasted. What was he doing? Jennifer Connelly, the same thing. It's just, I realized why they were there, and just given the fate of their characters, it just didn't really feel like it made any real impact to the overall story. Getting into the acting now, I'm not going to say that they didn't do a decent job, because they did fine for what they had. But the main relationships here are between, Alita and the kid that Joel was talking about, and then, of course, Christoph Waltz, who is basically her new dad. Christoph Waltz is fine. The kid is also fine, but I think the main heartbeat of this movie is Rosa Salazar. It was really fun to see the behind the scenes of the mocap and everything, because there was like a little package that played at the end of the screening I went to. It was really cool to kind of see her in the dots, in the leotard outfit, doing this performance. And, her performance is really kind of special, where, at the very beginning, she's really kind of lost. She doesn't know where to fit in, and she is kind of dumbfounded that, she's even alive right now. And then she eventually grows into the warrior that, she was always in her past, and she's, kind of becoming herself again. I love that kind of growth within her. And I think the distinct facial patterns that Rosa has, and just the inflections in her voices, I thought she did a pretty great job with that. And, the detail on her face and her body is so intricate and just so detailed. Once again, the mocap in this movie is it's kind of bonkers on how good it is. But so, yeah, she does a great job. I mentioned everyone else's performance. That's about it, because I talked about the CGI, I talked about the directing, writers. Yeah, I mean, listen, I had a fun time with it, but the last 10 minutes, I felt like none of it was justified, and it just, it ended on credits, and I was like, cool, I wouldn't mind seeing a sequel, but, they could have handled that last little tag a little better. So with that being said, I was going to give it a straight B, but with all the little nitpicks, and then with those last 10 minutes, I'm going to drop it down to a B minus. But I would still recommend it. We saw it on, that wasn't IMAX, but it was, a pretty big screen, 3D. I'm not an advocate for 3D, but the 3D was pretty great. It just adds a lot of depth, a lot of, that extra little boost to the visual component of the movie. So it's not something that's necessary, but if you want to see this in 3D on the biggest screen, I will slightly endorse that. So if you want to go do that, go for it. So yeah, like the movie, wouldn't mind seeing a sequel, but a B minus for me.
So, all right. There's some stuff that you said that contributes to me not quite being able to recommend this. And that's why it's weird. We're like one grade away from each other today, with our slightly removed ratings for the Lego Movie and our slightly removed ratings for this. I'm going with a C+. It's a near miss for me. Can't say I quite recommend it. I wouldn't mind seeing a sequel, but a lot of what you said is pretty much my problem with it. And that's going straight into the kind of my problems with it. I thought that the storytelling here was kind of weirdly static dramatically, in terms of the fact that this is kind of she's a very reactive protagonist, or she does a lot, but she doesn't take part in the plot a lot. So much of the plotting has to do with her kind of half-remembered past. And by the way, one thing I don't have a problem with is the flashbacks. The flashbacks almost reminded me of the flashbacks from Thor Ragnarok that we love so much. Remember how effective those were, with the kind of very almost artistry kind of the artistry of the slow motion and how they were built. I love the flashbacks in that movie. And here,
I totally agree.
It's sort
of
a
you,
similar thing where we get, with the flashes of her past here, we get in literally flashes. I mean, we get a little bit of information, and then it comes back to the present. And I thought that it was done in a way that was quite effective. Unfortunately, I felt like the movie didn't focus on that nearly enough. I feel like we needed more of that, because otherwise you just have this plot where she's realizing her strength, she fights back against some foes, and then it stings a sequel, and that's it. There's no dramatic component here that made me feel like I was actually invested in a plot. And unfortunately, there was the world building and all that does a lot, but it doesn't do quite enough. It only takes you to a specific place, and at that point the story needs to take over, because at some point we get used to it. We get used to the visual component. We become accustomed to how great it looks, and it does look amazing. The visual effects artists obviously spent hundreds of thousands of man hours on this, and it shows. I mean, not just on Alita, who herself is a really effective visual effect. That's redundant, but anyway. But on the world, the production design is quite impressive, but more impressive is the visual effects that embellish it. And you have all the little elements of the kind of this city on the bottom, and then the motorball stuff of the city above is really impressive. Very the action scenes in particular are a high mark for me because of how kinetic and brutal they are. It's surprisingly brutal to me. Particularly because this is a PG-13 rated movie. It really pushes the limits of that with some of the violence here. There's beheadings, there's a bisection, there's beheading. I just said beheadings. Kind of head smashing. It's pretty brutal. Some of it has to do with robots, but it's not. It's still brutal, and it's certainly a serious world and a serious piece of storytelling because of that. But for me, it just becomes a bit monotonous to follow her on this journey with all these different predictable markers, and then you get to the end, and it gets to a point where it's about to introduce some truly emotional stuff. It's about to take us to an interesting place, and it ends, and that's it. And there's probably not going to be a sequel. I mean, maybe if this is a success of the box office, we'll see how that all turns out. But yeah, I just I wouldn't mind seeing a sequel. I don't really care for this movie in any particular way. I think a sequel will be interesting in this world, but yeah, I can't quite recommend this version of it. What I can recommend though is Rosa Salazar. I've been a fan of hers for a while now. She had this bit role. I've said it before. She had this bit role in a show that I love, Parenthood, where she plays a mother-to-be who might very well be the mother of a child to be adopted by the two members of the main family, and it ends up being a very emotional subplot that stretches for most of a season, and she's fantastic in it. And sort of this financially strapped and emotionally just done, if you will, young mother who just can't really deal with that. And so I've been a fan of hers for a while, and she's done some stuff since then, stuff like, the Maze Runner movies. She had a bit role in those. And this deserves to be a star-making one. She's very good here through the computer and just otherwise. It's it's expressive. It has to be, but it is, and it's effectively so. And she's quite good. The other actors, there's really not much worth saying. I will say, this is very small and it's inconsequential, but I don't know if you'll agree with me on this. Okay, so part of the plot involves her becoming this vigilante, and her new father figure is one as well. And he carries a weapon with him, and I don't know if it's because of Christoph Waltz's stature or maybe his kind of lack of confidence when it comes to holding that, but for me, there was nothing funnier than watching him trying to run or fight with that weapon. And I feel like they needed to switch it up a little bit. Give him a different weapon than something that looks like it's Thor's hammer times 14 or something like that, with the jetpack on it. It is a bit clanky, I guess. And there are little details like that annoyed me, just because they took me out of the experience. I don't know why particularly, but I kept going back to that image of him running into a bar at one point, and he's wielding this huge weapon that he can't really do anything but hold upward, and it's just, anyway, very silly. There's some silliness here, but anyway, pushing past that, it's just kind of a marginal piece of entertainment for me. There's a lot of kinetic visual stuff that works, and then in terms of the plot, which it really pays attention to, it just doesn't quite hold up. And I that's why I think it's a near miss. But anyway, you could do a lot worse than this. It's certainly worthy of a rental if you wanted to see it on the big screen. I saw it in IMAX 3D. It's pretty impressive there.
Joel, you know what's really great about your entire review? I don't disagree with anything you just said. The only reason I'm going slightly higher is just because of what you said with the passion and the care and the man hours behind the animation, because it's impressive stuff, and so that's why I was able to edge it out just a little bit.
Yeah, and it's hard to discount that stuff, I will say.
Right.
I mean, it nearly gets the movie through for me, just because it is such a visual marvel. But yeah, it's just these elements of the storytelling, once they kick in, and they really do, because the movie ultimately cares very much about its plot. I just don't think it holds up. And so that's why it's an asterisk movie for me. It's one that I'm not saying that I dislike, but there's just elements of it that stop me short from and I don't know if I don't want to run into any sort of trademark stuff here, but the old phrase from Siskel and Ebert when it comes to a movie that's marginally not, I'm not able to recommend it. It involves their catchphrase, which is trademarked, but yeah, it's just barely there for me in terms of just being just under that threshold of me being able to recommend it. I just can't quite go there, but yeah. Anyway, I definitely wouldn't dismiss it either. We've seen worse movies already this year, so obviously that's not really saying much, but it's it's a C+ for me. I had a generally good time with it until my hand caught air, I guess you could say. I just didn't quite clinch it, and so in any case, near miss for me, or slight success for Chase, C+, B-. Do what you will with that information. See it, don't see it. I don't think either of us particularly care all that much.
No, I mean, if you were to ask me, I'm seeing it again tomorrow night, but if you were to ask me, do you want to rewatch this in the future, at home and stuff? Not really. It's pretty much a one and done situation for me, unless they do make a sequel and it looks better, and then I'll get excited again.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully it's a success, because I'd like to see more of this. I hope that what they don't do with the second one is then end with just a simple sequel stinger for the third one. That's they need to not do it.
I'm telling you,
that really
was I not lying when I said that this had some of the stink from Mortal Engines in terms of the way the story was structured, in terms of how they presented characters and how they presented the end stinger as if we're supposed to care.
Right. No, it's very similar. I mean, that's a much worse movie, but this, than this one was. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It does have that kind of belabored sense of franchise building right at the end, right when it should be enticing us with the characters. It tries to entice us with a series and with a big mythology and all of that. And it ends literally right after things become super emotional for Alita.
Right.
And then it ends us off on this random note of just kind of, oh, well, there's going to be another movie, so now you'll have to find out then what happens.
That's why
it's very tired. Yeah.
That's why when I tell people, those last 10 minutes are not earned, that's exactly what I'm talking about, where, they make it so, emotionally aggressive for a certain character in Alita. I'm like, this was not earned. And then they get to the end stinger, I'm like, this was also not earned. This is frustrating. And then the credits roll, and you're like, what did I just watch in that last 10 minutes?
Yeah, it's pretty disappointing. So, in any case, all right, next week is, at least for me, a big one, guys. This movie is highly anticipated by myself. If we were to have had an extended top 10 anticipated, this would be on it. And that review is How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World. I can't wait for this. You're actually all going to find out just how much I love the first film when we come around to our best picks for the best films of 2010. because I got some stuff to say. And I like the second one, but I'm super excited for this. Really, really looking forward to it. I see it Thursday night. I couldn't be more excited. And yeah, so that's the big one. And I'll have an extra review of one of the foreign language nominees from this year. One that opens in 2019, but obviously opened in its native Germany in 2018. So it was accepted by the Academy. And that's Never Look Away, the new film from director Florian Henkel von Donnersmarck. And yeah, it's a 3-hour epic set in Nazi Germany. Should be interesting. I'm seeing that on Monday. So that's my extra review. And then, of course, our main review again, How to Train Your Dragon, The Hidden World. So very excited for that. Chase, are you as excited as I am for How to Train Your Dragon?
Yeah, I love the first one, and I'm actually the opposite of you. I like the second one even more. So if they can just build on this mythology and these stories and the characters and stuff, I'm 100% on board.
Awesome. All right, folks, you can find some of my writing at joelonfilm.com. By the time most of you are listening to this, I should have reviews up for Alita Battle Angel as well as Isn't It Romantic, the film Chase mentioned much earlier, and as well as 3 movies that I caught up with at home, The Girl in the Spider's Web, The Grinch, and A Private War. So I should have reviews of those up by the time most of you are listening to this tomorrow. Elsewhere, you can find me rambling endlessly on Twitter at RealJoelCopling. That's ReelJoelCopling. And on Letterboxd at jcopling. You can also find some of my writing at DallasMovieScreenings.com. Should have a couple of reviews coming up for them, hopefully, in the next few weeks. Yeah, that's where I am. Chase, where are you?
If you guys want to follow me on Twitter, it's at RealChaseLee, and then the podcast Twitter page is at ReelMeInPodcast. And of course, if you're listening to this show, whether it's on CastBox, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever, please like, share, and let people know this is your favorite source of movie news, banter, and having me yell at Will Smith's genie look. This has been episode 266, where we talked about the Lego Movie 2, the second part, and Alita Battle Angel. Next week, as Joel said, 267, How to Train Your Dragon, The Hidden World. Going to be a lot of fun. We'll see you guys there. You guys keep it chill in the neighborhood, but not as chill as Will Smith is a genie. I still can't get over that. All right, we'll see you guys next week for another episode of Real Me and Cole in the Movie Podcast. I'm Chase. That is Joel. Peace out.
Bye.